Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feeds.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, good morning. Welcome to the dawn, everybody, where there are some beautiful clouds rolling across the sky with a gorgeous backdrop in the distance of the awakening morning. Our plans are to have a little look-see around where we left the Nkuhuma Pride yesterday, and hopefully they've come out of the block so we don't have to keep going around in circles. Now, obviously, we'll head in that direction, looking for some tracks, and Tristan is out and about. He's going to be checking the western boundary for me to see that the lions haven't crossed out. We also might try to follow up on where the buffalo have gotten to. Tess is out in Ngala. I think she's going to be trying to follow up on the Birmingham Pride. Kyle is out in Twalu Kalahari, and he is going to be exploring that beautiful reserve. And we have JP out in Pridelands this morning. Pinder will not be joining us, but we do welcome you on board your live African safari. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. My name is Steve, joined by Mpo on camera. And as always, we're delighted and excited to have you with us on the Sunrise Safari on a wonderful Sunday. Now, we are going to be driving around, as I said before, seeing if we can pick up on of the Nkuhuma Pride from last night. It is a beautiful 23 degrees Celsius, 74 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you have any questions, please send them through to #WildEarth on Twitter. Throw them in on the YouTube chat stream using the all-important FC. And if you are under 18, get your parents or guardians to send through an email to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. It's a wonderful time in the morning to check activity and movement. And we know that many of our animals move through this open area in the morning. And as we came out, the herd of impala was all scattered on the right-hand side there, which is often a very good indication that something has come through in the night or recently to scare the life out of them. Now, there are hyena tracks all over, as there always are. But there's a little bit of a wind generating, and it's coming from the sort of south and the east. So I'm almost certain the lions, if they move, will have moved south and east. What direction is that wind coming from? Quite east now at the moment. The finger test. The finger test. The cold side is the direction the wind's coming from. It's not a fail state. Lana's looking forward to some lions. Well, Lana, I'm looking forward to finding you some lions. I found them yesterday morning, but we weren't able to show them to you because, well, they were off-road. And I haven't seen the Nkuhuma Pride properly in some time. So, let's go see who's been up and about. And when it comes to being up and about, there's no better understanding of what's going on with the daily weather forecast.
Seems like it's going to be a stormy morning here. Hopefully it'll be clear in other parts of South Africa. Morning, everybody. My name's Tristan. On camera, I've got Theo this morning. And what we are up to is basically helping Steve for a little bit. We're just going to do the boundaries for him. So we're going to wrap around and just try and just make sure the lions are out or in before he gets too into it. So it'll be quicker if I just do the boundary and then come around. So we'll close that out for him, and also just keep an eye out for any signs of any spotty cat tracks. And then from there, we'll just get an update. So there's 2 vehicles that are interested in the hyena den, so we'll wait for them to give us an update on what's happening there. So that's the kind of plan from us this morning, and then also to stay dry and not get rained on or electrocuted with lightning. There's been a bit of lightning around this morning, which is crazy. It's not normally kind of time of the day where we see thunderstorms. Our thunderstorms normally are in the afternoons, but these things happen. Weather changes, and so sometimes you do get it in the morning. It seems like it's going to be okay. There's a lot of wind blowing the clouds pretty quickly, and so generally we don't have too much to worry about when the clouds move that fast. Paul, what are the odds of spotting wild dogs this morning? I mean, wild dogs is one of those things that the odds are never really with you, unless they're denning. So it's always possible, but not likely, if that makes sense. It's one of those animals that it might be here, it might not be. You just got to take it as it comes. This kind of weather is perfect wild dog weather. I always find, for some random reason, when we get overcast, cloudy weather, wild dogs make an appearance somewhere. In terms of where the dogs are, no one actually knows. I should actually get hold of a good friend of mine, Grant, who runs the EWT Wild Dog Project, and find out if the collar's downloaded today and where they actually are. It'd be quite interesting to know. But the last time they were seen was going into Torchwood from in Koros. So they could be in the Kruger, they could be in Buffelshoek, they could be in Manyeleti. We certainly haven't seen any tracks of them coming through Djuma the last few days. So they must still be that side up there. No, that's hyena. For a second there I thought we had a female leopard track, but it's just hyenas going up and down. There's a sneaky hyena on Djuma that has 3 lobes on the one pad, so it looks just like a leopard track, and then you have to look at the toes. When you're driving, it's a lot more difficult to to kind of pick it up, but when you stop and actually look, then you see, oh wait, hang on, it's actually a hyena. Steve got a really nice photo of it the other day. These are all hyenas, but lots and lots of hyena activity here. Looks like at least 3 or 4 different individuals just going up and down. Wonder, maybe they know something we don't. So I want to just try and see where these buffalo went, because often we can find our cats following these buffalo. Daniel, only one active hyena den at Djuma. We don't see any others. The clan's got quite a big territory, and so Djuma's not big enough to house any other clans. I'm a bit surprised we don't see one on Buffelshoek or Torchwood. I thought maybe we'd get another clan there. There is a clan, I'm sure, that dens inside Kruger far, far, far to the east of Torchwood, because there's a little pan there called Green Pan, and often find hyenas lying there, and they are not the hyenas that we see. So I think there's a den that's on that side, but not in Torchwood itself. We also have on because well, we know that there's a den there. So Djuma's clan territory is quite far and wide-ranging. It's a big area that they encompass, and that's why we don't see any other hyenas denning on Djuma. Unfortunately, the way it is. Anyway, apparently our signal's not very good, so I'm sitting here waiting. Now, I don't know where you want us to pan to, Quinn, because we're in between a whole bunch of houses.
Well, thank you, Tristan. We haven't yet gotten to the area of where the lions were left last night. We're just taking it very slowly getting there. Remember, lions can move, so it's important to... Oxpeckers don't normally indicate lions, but I can hear some oxpeckers. But these important little junctions have to just have a little scratch around, and the problem is the road is so hard now that tracks. Woo, we're going to be very lucky this morning if we find these tracks of these lions, but we're going to do our best. It's very unlikely that they're still in the same place like the Telematis were the other day. Very unlikely. But a couple little sandy patches like that, hopefully they walk on, because otherwise, goodness. See, you know that's going to work when a millipede, or as South Africans like to call them, shongololos, have moved across. When they leave a track, you know the lions will leave a track. Little muddy patches like that. The lions don't really like muddy patches, you see. Now, hyena tracks running from that way, which is a good sign. You know, they would have smelt lions and be like, whoa, run away. So little soft tracks in the sand. Forgive me for leaning out the car so much, but we really do want to find some fresh spoor. Okay, so some nice patches here of soft ground where the hyenas have walked. It's a good sign. They were just in the drainage line from where we are now. Hello, lions. Ah, Charlotte, well, I'm glad you have a good feeling. It could go any way. Could go in any direction. Chelapan is up ahead, and I'm almost certain that's where they were going to go. And like I said before, the wind is coming from that side, so I kind of expect them to go that way. But the wind might have shifted in the last couple of hours. which could throw us off completely. Victor, yes it is, male and female. Even when they're young, the toes of the male are very wide. He's got a very wide foot, and those two front toes stand out very wide from the back of the pad, whereas the female is a little bit more narrow. Male's much wider. Take my thumb out of the picture. Much wider like that, where the females are more narrow. A big male, much bigger than a female as well. But you do get some pretty large females, but if we find some tracks I'll show you. Okay, well there's hyena running. It's a good sign. Big junction coming up. You know, we like to check junctions. That's where all the action happens. If you know get my meaning. Especially when you have fresh tracks. Very fresh tracks. So that's also a good thing why, with Tristan checking the boundary, he can make sure they haven't crossed out. And if they haven't crossed out, we can do, if I don't get a circle, or don't get tracks around this circle, then they're either still in or they've somehow gotten over that little circle that I've checked. And then you just check a bigger circle and a bigger circle until you cut the spoor. Sorry, Tristy, tracks of the herd.
Yeah, I'm just checking if there's no guard tracks in here. The herd is mobile east on the road.
Okay, copy, thank you. Still no tracks this side. So Tristan has found the tracks of the buffalo herd. They might have attracted. Yeah, I didn't see them all, but the tracks indicated a very big herd. Okay, so very delicate little spots. Now have a look at where I'm walking. Watch. This is my heavy foot. Do you see my track? Over there. Nothing. Now, if we don't leave tracks, everybody, you can imagine how the lions are when they walk very softly. So let's just check. There's a couple sandy patches. There's a hyena. Very soft and sandy over here. Nothing. Okay, nothing. Let's check this side. We're going to go around. I anticipated that direction, so sometimes the gut feeling can be so important. It's very soft here, so now if I step there, you'll be able to see my foot quite easily, where the vehicles have driven here a few times. Maybe they're still there. Okay, well, Tristan's on the northern boundary. He's been following the buffalo, or at least he's picked up on their spoor. I wonder if he's going to be able to track them down.
We have indeed, Steve. We've found them, and the reason why I followed these tracks was just in case these lions had somehow turned and heard these buffalo and were coming in towards where they are. It's always a worthwhile endeavor when you have a herd of buffalo around, just to track them in the mornings early, just to see if the lions have been following them. It doesn't look like it. I've been on their tracks for quite a while now, and there's no set of kitty tracks over the top. When you track buffalo herds, you know straight away if lions are hunting them, because what you get is this mangled road with dung everywhere from buffalo, and they churn the road up really nicely. They make the road like kind of soft and puffy, and so if lions are hunting them, you immediately see those paw prints over the top of those hoof prints, and you know full well that the lions have been following them. But what can happen sometimes is because of the noise that they make and the noise of the oxpeckers, you often find lions can intercept them. So lions can come from another direction. So it's always when you find buffaloes, just do a loop around them. So you kind of just do the block around, and you'll often kind of pick up a track somewhere there. You must remember that in this area, we have 2 prides that are large at the moment, and there's not a lot of food in the way of these guys. It's the first buffalo I've seen in 2 weeks. And so when they're around, the lions typically are quite a sort of aware of them and quite in tune with it, that there's an opportunity for a large meal. The problem with herds, and particularly this herd, it looks like quite a large one given all the tracks that I've seen, is that they can rally together, and because of the rain that we've had, the grass that's grown, these guys are all in great condition. They're going to be strong, healthy, fit, and that's going to make life tricky for the lions. I mean, they're in far better condition than they've ever been, well, than they were 5 years ago. They're looking all very, very healthy, the buffalo, nice big bodies, and that's going to be a difficult task for lions. So what the lions are aiming to do is either to find an injured, sick individual or one like this, and they'll then separate it and try and grab it, which brings me to what Jackson is asking is, aren't buffaloes too dangerous to hunt? No, I mean, they are dangerous, there's no doubts about that, and many a lion has lost its life hunting buffalo. But the reward is worth the risk with them, and if lions can separate an individual or find a sick or injured individual or a young one, then they're able to bring that down easier than a very big, healthy individual. And lions get good at it. You know, they know how to do it. They start to separate these buffalo. They cause panic in the herd. They try and get one, and then it's a game of cat and mouse while they try and kill it. Ultimately, though, the buffalo that really get hammered by lions more than anything else are these old bulls that are often found on their own. For a lion, that's a much easier prospect than herds like this. Old bulls that are on their own don't have the company of another 200 individuals that can chase those lions away. So once they get into a battle with him, yes, it might be a long and arduous battle, and they might go back and forth for ages, but they don't have to worry about the rest causing havoc. Because when it comes to buffalo hunting, if a lion can't get that buffalo down initially and be able to get a proper hold on it and deter the herd from coming, then they've lost the battle. Once these guys can form a rank and they can kind of get these males in front and push back and get organized, the lions really have no price in terms of keeping them at bay. These guys, when they're angry and when there's a group of them storming at the lions, it's very, very, very quick. Kind of the tables are turned and the lions are sent scattering. I actually watched the Nkuhumas right where we are right now, just north of here, a few months ago, get an absolute hiding from a buffalo herd. They were chased everywhere. And there even was cats up trees at one point. The 2 Avoca males were particularly useful in that particular hunt. Both of them ran before even the females did. And went and lay like a kilometer away and left the females to deal with the angry buffalo. It's quite impressive, really, from a group of male lions. It's supposed to be these intimidating individuals. Yeah, but that's the Avocas for you. The Birminghams wouldn't have taken a backward step in that situation. They would have stamped their authority pretty quickly. I can understand it, though. I mean, obviously they've got to move out the way if they're going to get trampled. But the Birminghams somehow were able to figure out a way as a group of males, and I suppose 4 males or 5 males together was much easier to turn the tables on buffalo than it is if you're just 1 or 2, especially if you're injured. All right, well, we'll stay with these buffalo for now. We'll just listen out. Maybe we hear something or see something. I'm sure they're going to start getting up and getting down towards water as the morning goes.
Thanks, Tristan. Just having a look to see if they haven't come up this way. Very hard ground. There's some serious lightning in the distance. That is potentially quite dangerous. We'll keep our eye on it.
Dumela, good morning and welcome to Tswalu Kalahari. My name is Kyle and behind camera is Craig. And we are on the search for a beautiful and very complex creature called a spotted hyena. We heard this animal vocalizing north of camp this morning. And we thought we would try and come and locate it before making our way down to the Makala group, the Makala Meerkat group. The call of a hyena, especially a spotted hyena, is very distinctive. Typical whooping sound. And we heard it a few times while we were busy setting up this morning, so we thought, let's give it a shot. So what we've done is we've come north and we've used 2-3 blocks coming north. We've rushed up over here because there is a den site about 4 kilometers north of us. And if that animal was moving back to the den site, it would have moved in this general direction. So we've made a big loop across 2 or 3 blocks and we're utilizing the road plus our sense of hearing. So utilizing the road for any tracks left behind, but then also just keeping our senses tapped in. So if it calls, obviously that gives us a sure direction. And it's a very distinctive looking animal. It's got a sloped back. Oh, no. Got excited there. It's got a sloped back, very large head, very, very strong forequarters. Lucas, we have a pack on this area. In this area, we have a pack of 4, or a clan, as they're correctly termed. On Tswalu, I would have to say we have more brown hyena, although we don't see them very, very often. They are very shy and very elusive, the brown hyena. We see them typically more in winter, through the afternoon periods, and then we can catch them at watering holes early afternoon now in summer. And then if you venture out on a nocturnal game drive, we can also catch them under the cover of darkness. But these spotted hyena have just been recently brought into Tswalu, and they are still establishing themselves. And I do not doubt in the next couple of months, or let's say a year or two, that clan will be much stronger. They have a very, very strong and very successful breeding strategy. Clan members obviously protect, and they've got a very devoted mother. So in the near future, I'm sure that we would have a very healthy population of spotted hyena. But right now, I would have to say we have more brown hyena than spotted. Oh, that's an oryx laying down. Oh my word, I was about to say, oh my gosh, we found it. There's an oryx just taking it easy. Oh, he is up. Lovely. Look at that. Lovely colors early morning. A very, very strong posture. You can see it's a male. As well as you can see the sociability, it's by itself. Oh, and he is going. All right, he is on the move, we'll be on the move, but for now, let's send you over to Tristan with those buffalo.
Still with our buffalo. It's a nice big herd. They're quite spread out, and a lot of them are lying down, so it's difficult for everyone to get an appreciation of how big the herd actually is. There's probably a good 300 buffalo here, which is a decent amount. I mean, they're spreading kind of across the entire fire break at the moment. A lot of them are lying down. What's nice to see is a number of big pregnant cows in this group. That'd be cool to get actually a live buffalo birth. I think Steve's gotten it once before. It happens quite regularly. If you follow buffalo herds enough and they're around enough, you can get to see it. I've seen it a few times through the years of buffalo giving birth. All you got to look for is there's actually a brand new one that's just been born. Well, it's standing already, but it's tiny, tiny, tiny. It's just in amongst those big buffalo. You can see it there. That's still very little. Cute though, isn't it? It's got massive ears. Even the horns haven't quite erupted nicely yet. So that would be only probably a few days old. I don't think that's been with us for that long. And you'll find that when we're talking just now about lions hunting, sometimes you'll find even leopards and hyenas will take advantage of buffalo, particularly when they are giving birth to young little inexperienced buffalo like that. If they can run in and grab that and injure it enough before the herd reacts, they can then kind of, score themselves a buffalo meal. But it's a dangerous thing to come into this herd and try and grab a little one. There was a male leopard that used to do it down in the southwest of the Sabi Sands called Kashan. We used to find him inside the buffalo herds, and he would go after these young little buffalo every now and then. And he got it right once or twice, but he also got himself into a pickle a few times as well, where he got chased up a tree. I suppose if you're a leopard, at least you can get up into the trees and not have to worry too much, whereas, things like hyenas don't have that luxury. But an efficient hyena clan really can do some severe damage to a buffalo herd. I mean, in the Mara, we had a clan of hyenas called the Happy Zebra Clan, which is my favorite name ever for a hyena clan. It's not like, I'm sure those hyenas were not very, the zebras were not very happy when their clan arrived, but it's made me laugh every time. But the Happy Zebra Clan, we worked out how to hunt buffalo, and they used to target even big cows. They weren't afraid of that, and they used to just do it by sheer weight of numbers and exhaustion. And so they'd chase these herds around, and they'd basically distract these bulls enough that some of the members of the clan could get in and start pecking at the backs of these buffalo, and eventually they would be able to grab them and bring them down. And so amazing to kind of see and witness when they did it. It was like a surgical operation that they went about dismantling the herd and breaking it apart and getting it into smaller groupings to then be able to grab the buffalo that they had deemed fit at the time. I found it absolutely fascinating to watch. The lions couldn't even get it right at times, but those hyenas, the clans, they're also massive. We're talking clans that are 70, 80, 100 individuals, so it's very different to the clans here. Chloe, no, males and females do not have the same shaped horns, so there's actually a really nice example of them sitting down over here. You've got a male behind a female, so if you look at those horn structures, you see the males. In fact, is it a male? It might just be a female with a bit of... Anyway, in the front is definitely a female. She's got hairy tops to her horns, you see that? Quite underdeveloped, fairly thin, kind of weak-looking horns, if you want to call it that. And then if you look to the right of her, there's a bull there. Now you see his top of his head, there's a very heavy thickening of those horns. That's a young bull there that hasn't gotten big horns just yet. But you notice how there's no hair on top and that boss is starting to develop. That's what that's called, that little piece on top. And if you actually look to the center there's a much older bull, and you can see how his horns have thickened up even more. He's become a lot bigger. And those horns, even towards the ear area, is much wider and thicker in the males. So a very different look to females and males. But the sort of middle part is where you can tell straight away. A big bull buffalo has these very thickened, hardened tops to their head, whereas cows typically is quite hairy and underdeveloped in that area. I haven't seen any really massive bulls yet in here in terms of horn size. There's lots of big-bodied bull buffalo in this group. There was one bull that I went past just now. He's an absolute tank. But I haven't seen any of those really super horned individuals. Sometimes you find these herds and you'll get these bulls with these monster kind of curling horns. They really are impressive and can be quite intimidating when they look like that. I also wanted to show you right in the back there, I don't know if we'll be able to get on camera, but there's an individual that's much skinnier than everybody else. So in that area there, you see that individual there. Look at the rib cage, the hips sticking out. You compare that to all the other buffalo, and that's an individual that is not doing well. So there may be some underlying cause for that individual to not be healthy. And that's what the lions are looking for in a herd like this, is that even though it's not going to be as much meat as a healthy individual, that one is not going to be able to fight nearly as much as a strong, healthy bull. I mean, if you look at the one in front, look at the roundness of the hips and the rump area, you see how much meat is on those rumps as opposed to the other one. So those are big, strong, kind of fit and healthy. There's a very pregnant cow that you're looking at the moment. Look how swollen her stomach is. Her teats are even starting to swell, so she's going to give birth soon. Whereas that other one that we saw just now is skinny and really undernourished. And so that's what lions are looking for, is these kind of individuals. They're looking for ones that have leg injuries, anything really that gives them a slight bit of an advantage is what they will take. And sometimes they'll even test the herd. So what you'll find is the lions will sit here and they'll watch these buffalo, and they'll watch and they'll watch and they'll watch, and then all of a sudden they see the buffalo kind of starting to move, and one lion will run in and cause a massive eruption. And then the other lions watch and they see, okay, which buffalo was lagging, which buffalo is running with difficulty, and then they start honing in from there. That's the really successful prides. That's how they'll kind of operate. They'll pick and choose exactly which ones they're trying to strike at, and then they use sheer amount of chaos from lions attacking at different angles to then try and break the herd up to get to that individual, because often those sick and injured individuals will try and be in the middle of the grouping, but if they can create enough panic and enough of a rush, those guys can't keep up with the rest and they start to fall back, and it becomes then easier for the lions. So it's a huge tactical thing, this. The buffalo also are in their own right doing the same things. As soon as the lions rush them, what you're finding is they're pushing all the injured individuals, all the little calves, females, they're going to try and center them, and all the bulls will come to the front. So you'll find that every single bull will come towards the lions, and they form this kind of line, and from there it's just this massive push forward, and they try and drive the lions backwards all the time. So they too have their own little tactics that they use, and that's why watching lions and buffalo has become this massive thing that everybody wants to see in life. because of the tactical nature of it, coupled with the intensity of the hunt when you're seeing these animals going at each other, the noise that buffalo make, the stampeding that happens, and how the ground vibrates. It is an insane thing to witness, the actual kind of chasing part. If lions get a buffalo, though, that then becomes very difficult to watch. I've had a number of guests that have always said, I want to watch lions and buffalo hunts, and when they actually experience it, I don't think I've ever had a guest walk away from it going, that was epic, I want to see it all the time. It is traumatic, to say the least. These animals fight for their life. They scream, they bellow. The lions are eating them while they're still alive at times. I remember a bull buffalo that fought with lions for over 3 hours, and he was completely disemboweled before he died. They literally had lions climbing in the back part of him, and he was still grunting and bellowing. So it is a very, very, very difficult thing to watch. Amazing to see the initial part of the hunt, but the ending is pretty kind of gruesome at times. Dolly, yes, most definitely they can smell us. More than smell us, they can see us and hear us. A car is not a quiet thing when it approaches a herd. They are very in tune with their environment, and if you look at a buffalo and its head, this is always an easy thing to tell what the animal relies on heavily is by looking at the sensory organs and the size of those sensory organs on a head of an animal. So if you look, massive big noses with huge nostrils, so they're pulling in a lot of scent. You're going to find every now and then when the wind blows from me to them, which it is, that you're going to see them lift their heads slightly, and they're going to just give it a little sniff, little test of the air just to see what I am. So they rely heavily on that. Then look at the ears, big ears as well, that channel forward and will constantly listen to what we're doing. And then their eyes are not as big as the others, so their eyesight is good, but it's not their primary kind of relying scent. They use that once they have kind of sniffed the air and they know something's around, then they scan a lot more with their eyes, and then they pick up movement, and that's how they go. But sometimes you can see their eyes aren't that great. When I've had lions kind of walk right up to buffalo and the wind is the right direction, and they kind of lie down and the buffalo stare right at them and don't realize it's a lion until the lion moves, and then they pick up the movement with the eyes. But their hearing and their sense of smell is what keeps them out of trouble a lot of the time. You will find a lot of these guys are going to have their noses to the wind regularly. It's why the theory of lions not caring about the wind makes no sense to me. It can't be the case, because these guys are so in tune with the wind that's blowing. I mean, we've got a little breeze that's blowing now, and I can see as soon as there's a little gust, lots of these buffalo are picking up their noses and just sniffing and kind of picking up. You see even this buffalo in front here, watch her nose when the wind is blowing. It just goes slightly up and down. You see that? So that's it smelling and testing the air. It's got a little organ inside its mouth called the organ of Jacobson, and it's picking up that air all the time, and it's testing, and it's working out what's going on. Now, if lions were always to walk with the wind at their backs and blowing towards these guys, they're going to smell them all the time, and the herd's going to be a lot more aware of what's going on. Whereas if they come from the other side, these buffalo will have no idea, and the element of surprise and ambush is going to be that much better if they do it. So I don't buy into that lions don't care about wind. They are surely intelligent enough to understand. If we as people have learnt, and I mean, obviously hunting side of it is like that, but from us as guides, when we do our bushwalks, if we have learnt that wind is vitally important for us to not be detected, and therefore to view animals without them running away or being aggressive, then there's no ways that cats have not learned the same thing. They are intelligent creatures when it comes to finding food. Ultimately, their life depends on it. And so they can't not use every available advantage that they can. And wind direction certainly is one of those things. And I'm always of the opinion that lions walk into the wind, more so than leopard. But there's a few that disagree and say that it's more random and it's just coincidental and we kind of just watch it. But the evidence for me has been proven time and time again. You leave a lion pride in the morning, the wind picks up and in the afternoon, you go in the mornings, and those lions have been walking into the wind the whole time with the tracks. So anyway, we're still with our buffalo. We're going to probably move on fairly shortly. Unfortunately, the hyena den is not active this morning. So we'll just go and do a loop around these guys just to see and make sure there's no lions that have come in. And while talking about lions, let's send you across to Steve, who I think is still busy trying to find any sign for the Nkulmas.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, no sign of them coming out of that block. Doesn't mean they haven't. I'm now doing a much larger loop to encompass an area that they might have gone to. Sometimes they'll walk out on a concreted section, or it feels like it's a concreted section, then you'll miss them. Bigger loops until you can find where they've gotten to. They're not a tree house. Well, it only depends on which prey. Some of the prey are benefited by the long grass, such as the steenbok and the duiker. But the lions definitely do much better in the long grass. They actually will affect populations of zebra and wildebeest because of that. Buffalo do quite well because the vegetation, not because it's density, but because its availability makes them a lot stronger. So there's definitely a switch in prey sort of hunting. Between those animals. But I've seen lions walk straight past the steenbok because he just went. We'd seen it, lions hadn't seen it. Quite secretive little fellows. So the grass does have benefits. Tracks of a young male leopard heading towards treehouse. Wonder if we're going to be able to get it. Not very clear. It's on top of the Shongololo track. Now you might sometimes be unsure of how. Yeah, that's actually a female. You see it. There's the toes, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there's the back pad there. And the Shongololo has walked on top of it, the Millipede. It's on top of the Shongololo track. But there are other bigger animals on top, so it doesn't seem to be that fresh. I definitely didn't spend any time on this road last night, because we were busy with lions the whole time, so it's probably from yesterday, but definitely worth making a mark so we can come back and follow up. We are on a lion mission right now. If they look any fresher in a minute, I'll definitely change my plans. Scotty Shongololo is a millipede. I think I mentioned it about 20 minutes ago when I said millipede, and in South Africa we call it a Shongololo. The locals call it a Congoloti. So I'll try to find you one. They are quite abundant after the rains, but they're very shy the last couple of days. Okay, we're going to check this junction as another port of call for direction that the lions might have headed.
The croc is still holding another one there. It's holding from the hindquarters. I would really want The wildebeest cross, is it trying? The croc is holding the tail. It's holding tight. Oh no. Goodness me. Lucky wildebeest. You have another day to leave.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily. If you love to watch Wild Earth, then we are inviting you to join our Explorers program. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic Wild Earth expeditions. Join our guides for a chat around the fire, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn allows us to escape into nature every single day. Our first Wild Earth Explorers competition has closed, and we have a winner. Congratulations to Chantal Sleep from Benoni in South Africa.
I felt totally overwhelmed for winning this prize. I will be taking my son with me, and I can't wait to share this experience with him.
Chantal and her son have won a behind-the-scenes Wild Earth experience at the magnificent and beyond Ngala tented safari camp. The prize includes a 3-night stay and a chance to sleep out in the unique Ngala treehouse.
I would like to thank Wild Earth for making this dream come true, and I encourage everybody to subscribe, to become an explorer, and stand the chance to win these amazing prizes, and so much more.
For this month, we have a brand new prize. You could be jetting off to Tswalu in the Kalahari for a 3-night stay at the luxurious Motsi Lodge. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and I come to you live every day here from Tswalu, Kalahari in South Africa. My favorite bird has to be the social weaver. The enormous nest that they create, their survival tactics to inhabit these harsh and unforgiving environments, and as well as their complex social arrangements, is truly remarkable. And the interconnectedness with the ecosystem shows us that we are too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
Good morning. Lovely scene of a sunrise we have going here. And we have, oopsie, my apologies, my big body. We have not had any success with that spotted hyena, and we do not want to miss the wake-up call for the meerkats. So we have gone a bit further south. We've left the area where we heard the hyena, and we are just meandering south towards the rock stars. We're going to visit the rock stars again this morning instead of the Makala group, just to do another update because we haven't seen them for a while, and it is just looking very beautiful at that burrow system. Craig giving us a beautiful view looking eastward into those beautiful mountains. Look how stunning that is. So, Miley, they're very clever little animals. Depending on the time of the year, their wake-up time will actually change. Now, it is at about 6:30, maybe 6:45, depending on the conditions. So if it is very cool, if it's an overcast day and very windy, their wake-up time will be pushed back a bit later. So typically we're looking at about 6:20 to about 6:40 in summer. And then in winter, when it's very, very chilly, when the sun decides to rise a bit later, they only emerge at about 7:30, maybe 7:45 in the winter. And that's very clever from an animal it's very clever from an animal that it changes its activity depending on the time of the year. So utilizing the more favorable periods of the year. And that is very clever. I find that fascinating. Same as aardvark and pangolin. Like I've mentioned before, the best period to view those animals in Tswalu is winter. If you want to see a pangolin, it is winter you want to be here. There's chances you can see it in summer, but then it will be under the cover of darkness. as in where in winter we can walk and track the animal, and it is an amazing activity. So it's remarkable, an animal changing its behavior depending on the year, the time of the year, and then obviously best suiting it. Because winter mornings are very chilly here. Lovely scene, sure. I know Craig is doing a phenomenal job at showing you guys how beautiful this place really is. I mean, I could take that camera. I don't think I could make it look as good. I'd more than likely make everybody seasick. But yeah, the landscape is just breathtaking out here. And something that I appreciate on a day-to-day basis. Alrighty. Okay, I think on we go. Let us meet Eander further down south. We do not want to miss our little rockstar group. So south is where we're going. We're going to hit a junction and then we're going south-southwest. Obviously keeping the sun on our left-hand shoulder, then we know we're going south. Little Namakwa does. Choop, choop. Okay, but we're gonna head that way. We'll set up and we'll see you guys back at the Meerkats. But let's send you off to Tristan with those buffalo.
Here we are with the buffalo at the moment. You can see they're very restless and upset now. And that's because for some odd reason the anti-poaching unit decided to walk straight through the middle of them and has caused much panic in this buffalo. I don't know why, but they have. It's quite simple to go around them, but apparently not. Apparently we just walk through these things these days and unsettle the animals completely. So you'll see that they're very huffy and puffy and are in a little bit of a mood, and that's just because of that reason. It's not because of lions. I initially thought it might have been them because they all started running and snorting and being very alert, but it's not the case. Like I said, it was just the anti-poaching unit that went through it. No signs of lions anywhere. Apparently there was a brief view of a leopard now on quarantine, but she's gone into the drainage line. She should come out. So I think Steve's going to head there. He's much closer than I am at the moment. And she should kind of pop out and head towards where it's at our access side. So I'm hoping that she does. But once they get into that drainage off Western Quarantine, you've got very little chance of being able to see them. It's so wet at the moment, you won't be able to off-road in there. It's also the grass is so long, you're just going to get yourself stuck at the end of the day, which is really not the way that you want to go. Better to rather wait for her on the road itself. Could be Shidulu. If it's Shidulu, she'll cut more west, but if it's Larama, she'll come north. Not often. We typically, the animals that are in this particular reserve have become fairly used to, cars, even people on foot to a degree because of the amount of tracking that's taking place, the anti-poaching units that are roaming around. So the animals here have become a little bit more desensitized to people in that they're seeing that people are not being that aggressive to them. And that means that they themselves have really started to calm down and are not as much of a there's not as much aggression shown to people. But every now and then you'll get an animal on a bad day. You never know, maybe they've had a little fight with somebody. So like an elephant bull that's potentially been fighting with another one, maybe he's got a little injury, can be cantankerous. The odd buffalo bull that's on its own. Random animals that also come in from the Kruger that don't know the vehicles that well, are not used to being followed off-road in some cases. Those kinds of things will start to kind of come in every now and then, but it's really not often. Most animals out here, if you are aware of their signs when they're upset and you're willing to be patient and position yourself at a fair distance away from them and not kind of harass them, then animals are actually fairly tolerant. They are a lot more tolerant than people give them credit for, and probably a lot more tolerant than we as people are. Imagine somebody coming up to you every day and following you around. You would get pretty bleak pretty quickly. And these guys are for the most part fine. The herd, like I say, is a little bit unsettled at the moment because of what just happened, but they'll settle down again. Everybody will start to lie down. They're just making sure that the threat is gone. There's still more buffalo behind us, so this is not the whole herd that you're seeing at the moment, and you can see it's quite deep into the bush. And they'll all come together again and lie down. And it's this weather, you find buffalo are not very active in this weather. They like to just kind of sit and wait it out. There's a bit of lightning and thunder and a drop of rain that's falling. So Ben, I feel like we've covered this morning, but yes, the buffalo will charge at predators with their horns. It's their number one defensive mechanism is to have those horns, and they are, like I say, will provide cover. The males will come in front and they'll charge forward towards predators, and if they can, they will impale them, trample them, stick their horns into them, do whatever they can to get rid of the threat. And many a lion has succumbed to a buffalo horn. I saw a lioness many years ago get hunting buffalo, and she killed the buffalo, and as she was killing it, another buffalo came and hit her, and the horn went in between her back legs, and he threw her, and as he threw her, it ripped her whole stomach open, and the lioness died next to the dead buffalo that she had just killed, which was pretty crazy. It was not a pleasant sighting at all, but it does happen. There was actually I think a video a few weeks ago of a lioness getting caught in a herd of buffalo, and I mean, by the time they finished with her, she literally was not recognizable as a lion anymore. Completely, all the bones were broken, everything, and was completely dead. So they will use horns as much as they possibly can to defend themselves. Like I say, they'll trample, they'll do whatever needs be to survive and to make their point known. And that's why buffalo are considered very dangerous to people. You come across a buffalo, and if it loses its temper with you, which is not that difficult in herds like this, much safer to walk into buffalo. These guys know that they're in big numbers. They typically aren't nearly as aggressive as a bull on his own. These guys actually are fairly all right, but when they're on their own, they become seriously problematic. And they're the animal that I'm probably the most nervous of because of just how unpredictable they can be. Ellies, for the most part, they have pretty clear warning signs when you're irritating them or you're in their space, as do most of the cats. But these guys just seem to have, you just don't know. The one day they'll run away, the next day they'll stand their ground. The following day they're going to charge at you and try and kill you. And that's what makes them, for me, why I'm the most sort of nervous of them on foot. It's because of that uncertainty around them. There's very little that you kind of can see that will determine what actually is going to happen with a buffalo. Also, buffalo are sneaky. A lone bull buffalo will sit and hear you coming and will wait behind a bush until you come round it, and then he'll come storming out of it. So I've had it a few times where you've got to take evasive action and get up into a tree as quick as possible. So they're sneaky in that way. I just don't like the kind of that sort of attitude that they have is not very pleasant. To feel like a calculated, aggressive maneuver has taken place against you. But like I say, in big herds like this, you're okay. You don't have to worry nearly as much. They're a lot more relaxed and a lot more confident of their position because of the numbers. Always laugh because a lot of people come to these reserves and they're just like cows. They may look a bit like cows, but they certainly don't behave that way. Justine, when females come into estrus, males will clash, and the strongest bull will basically muscle everybody else out the way and then harass the female till she mates with him. She doesn't really choose. She just gets harassed until such time as the bull is able to mount her and mate. And you might find that multiple bulls actually even mate with her in her estrus cycle. It will ensure good genetic diversity within the group. It's not always the same bull mating with the same cow. You do find sometimes the bulls do change over. And this bull in front here is he's a youngster. You can still see he's got a bit of brown tinge on his rump. He hasn't gone that full dark black color yet. He's probably the most worked up about what's going on. Every now and then is kind of charging forward, but he'll calm down eventually once he realizes there's no need to worry about it. Little calf that's completely unfazed by all of this. Mouthful of grass means it doesn't have to worry too much about life. Also, the big boys will take care of anything comes their way. I'm surprised that we didn't have any sign of the Telemates. I thought the Telemates were going to come in on these guys because their tracks yesterday were very close to Sydney's Dam, and these buffalo drank at Sydney's Dam during the day yesterday. So I thought with the noise, I mean, you can hear, if I keep quiet now, you'll hear just this grunts every now and then that the lions would have followed them, but it doesn't seem like that's taken place today. You can hear there's lots of bushes moving, and curly herds can get massive. The largest herd I've personally ever seen was here in the Sabi Sands. I saw a herd that was over 1,000 together, which is massive. So yeah, they're limited really by food availability and water availability. So when you find that a big herd like that walks through an area, because of their size, what they're not eating, they're typically trampling. And that means that, you know, they exhaust their resource pretty quickly. Also, 1,000 animals drinking from water holes reduces those water hole capacities pretty quickly. So you find that these guys, you know, constantly on the move. And when we had these drought periods recently, that really sort of hammered the buffalo herds. The herds split up into very small groupings. Lots of them died. And so, you know, we haven't quite recovered back to our normal buffalo parameters, if you want to call it that. It seems like we're getting there slowly, and herds like this are becoming more frequent. But what we don't have, and why the numbers of buffalo feel so bad, is that, you know, I remember we used to have buffalo bulls all the time. There was always a buffalo bull somewhere within the traverse. You could find one. You might not have these herds for, you know, weeks on end, but you would have herds passing through, and there would always be some bulls around and some kind of bachelors hanging in the area. And we don't see that anymore. If we don't have a herd, we typically just don't see buffalo. We can go weeks without seeing them, and slowly but surely that'll change. As these herds shift through, these bulls will drop off the herds. They'll find places where they like to hang around, where there's little mud wallows and there's places to sit and eat and drink, and they'll be happy there. And when a herd comes through, they'll join for a bit and then they'll drop off again. So, you know, that will start taking place, and slowly but surely as the numbers increase, I mean, you can see lots of little calves here that will do well this year because of the grass cover, because of the amount of food that they're getting. And then you'll find that the herds will grow, and slowly we'll start to see fragmenting and little bulls kind of dropping off in places, and the buffalo numbers will feel that much better again. All right, I'm going to leave these guys now. We'll let them kind of mellow out and chill. And go and just bumble about and see if we can't find any signs of anything in the area. So in the meantime, let's send you across to Steve.
Thanks, Tristan. Go find your leopard. Well, everybody, we've done big loops. This is my final attempt around this block. And then we're going to move on to something else. The lions have either called an Uber and flown away, or driven away in a car, because there's lots of vehicle tracks, no lion tracks, or they are in the block and maybe made a kill that we don't know about, can't get access to anyway. One last attempt.
They static place on the road.
I mean, I get a very strong feeling that they wouldn't have crossed the river. They wouldn't have crossed to the west, to the east. If they did, it would have been over a low area. That's just my thoughts. I checked a couple of the crossings. There was nothing crossing. Singer. We get normally 2, sometimes 3 different prides in this area. But in the Sabi Sands, my memory doesn't serve me correctly. I'll have to look up how many there are in the Sabi Sands. But in the Kruger, there's plenty. Plenty of lions. Plenty of lions moving around. But there's definitely more leopards in the Sabi Sands than there are lions, which is fascinating. A lot of that's got to do with the habitat and the food availability and what they feed on. As Tristan says, the buffalo aren't always here. And there's not an enormous amount of giraffe in this area. And so prides are limited then to their size, depending on the food they can catch. There's only so many zebra, wildebeest around as well. And impala, which is in abundance, is more of a selected food for the smaller predators, namely wild dog and leopard. Tammy, they mark it with urine spraying, and then they demarcate as well with calling. So lion's roar is exactly that. It's a territorial announcement, and it's an immediate, almost the same as leopard. They're advertising current availability, but then they scent mark through urine spraying and scratching of the earth. It's believed they also scratch trees, which they use for cleaning their claws. At the same time, glands on the face excrete substances on the tree. You often find them doing that quite sort of energetically. And as with other predators of their kind, it's all about smell. So when it rains, they have to re-demarcate. That's probably why the Talamati pride find themselves so conveniently in the middle of Juma, and why the Nkuhumas decided it was time to come back. After rain, it's a time to come back and reclaim what was yours. Okay, well, we're not having any luck. We're going to give up on these lions today. We're going to go and have a look at Twin Dams itself and see if maybe I didn't miss anything. I mean, should I say Gowrie Witela Dam? We'll take it from there. We might head north. Talamati pride sometimes is a few steps behind the herd of buffalo, so maybe they are on their way. Chatting to Michelle, the lodge manager, yesterday, and he said the Manileti guys were upset because the Talamatis went their side, then came back. But I didn't see them come back. Yesterday morning, their tracks definitely went over. But we were struggling for signal in that area, so we'll have to debate whether we can actually go and check. Kendra, I find lion easier just because there's more of them. But a single lioness, it's tricky. It's tricky. It also depends on what they're doing. Their behavior is very important. If they're just moving, they're just marking territory, it's pretty easy. Well, relatively easy. But if they're hunting, oh, very hard. Very, very hard to hunt, to track. And then conditions like this, when the light is fading and the ground is very hard and the grass is as tall as my head, then makes life very, very difficult. Let's do a spot of birding. Yes, here we go. Here's a hornbill. Hello, Mr. Hornbill. How are you doing this morning? He was enjoying sifting through some elephant dung a moment before. There are lots of elephants around, everybody. And a tree like the one the Hornbill's standing on was very likely damaged at one point. Oopsie. By an elephant. There we go. He's on another dead tree that was invariably damaged by an elephant and creates incredible habitat trees. Hornbill's nest in dead trees, cavities, as do barbets, woodpeckers. I can hear a crested barbet calling. I can also hear a Birchall starling calling. So a number of birds rely on habitat trees for breeding. And whenever we talk about habitat, it's important to list a few characteristics or categories of what defines an animal's habitat. There's the area that they eat, sleep, and breed in. So if we had to physically go out and harvest all these dead trees and use them for dead wood and for firewood, we would be removing an important habitat from a breeding point of view for many, many, many birds, for squirrels, monitor lizards, breeding sites for many, many insects. So by removing dead trees, we're essentially removing habitat, which will lead to loss of species diversity. We've still got him there. It's just behind the bush. Let's give you another view. Tando, here we get the southern yellow-billed, the southern red-billed, the African grey, the southern ground hornbill, and from time to time we hear the trumpeter, which moves through. Because of habitat, the trumpeter hornbill, like the crowned hornbill, which potentially we could also get through here, but I feel like they don't have the habitat for them. They move through. The trumpeter we find moving through riverine areas. We found it around Chitwa Lodge a couple times. But they are both more tall canopy liking birds. And that is their preferred habitat. But there are lots and lots of hornbills in Africa. There's also the Monteros, the Damara, the Bradfields, which I think all three of them occur in the side, yes. Then the silver-cheeked, which I have not seen. They occur up in Zimbabwe through to sort of central Mozambique. And so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 in total, of which we definitely get 4. Potentially the crowned, which occurs more in sort of the moister parts, occur all the way around the coast into KwaZulu-Natal. But their habitat is very, very important. Tall, closed canopy woodland and forest for the crown. So we don't really have much of that here. And the trumpeter that can occur here, it's got quite a similar sort of habitat, but as I've heard them move through, but they're not really occurring here naturally all the time. And that's to do with habitat. They feed on sycamore figs and a little bit more frugivorous. Okay, so we're going to go up to Twin Dams, or should I say to Gowrie Dam, see what's happening over there, and then take it from there as to what we get up to next.
I think Steve and I are both staying fairly local because it feels like rain is imminent. There's a few drops that are falling. You can see on my dashboard here, there's going to be the odd drop. So I don't think we're going to have a dry morning for much longer, and don't want to be caught very far away. We don't have our roofs on this morning because it was actually this most beautiful sunrise. The way the clouds were moving, it looked like it was taking the rain away from us, or the storm that was kind of around in the morning, but it seems to have circled back and come out, which isn't ideal. It wasn't really forecast for too much rain today. It was supposed to be tomorrow, but maybe it's arrived a little bit early. I just checking. We did a little loop around these buffalo just to see if there's any sign of anything. Doesn't seem like anything's actually come our way. So I think we're going to carry on and leave the area. I don't know what happened with those inkahumas. They must have crossed on a hard section that was difficult to see because, I'd be surprised if they stayed in the block unless they found something in there. Maybe they killed something big in there. I don't know. What could they have found in there? There was no tracks for buffalo. Maybe they got something big like a large waterbuck or a large bull kudu. That would have anchored them in there for a while. But when I spoke to Steve, he said that he'd walked in there. There's no sign of them where he saw them yesterday. So I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of feet. The tracks that we had in the morning yesterday was for lots of them. So you would see the tracks if they walked on the road for any stretch of time. Well, I don't know. Anyway, we'll scratch around and see. Maybe we'll pick them up at some point. Because they could just have had a good meal and are lying up after that. Alright, so we're going to carry on down this road. We're going to try and see if we can't find something somewhere in the area.
Well, good morning from the rock stars to everybody around the world. They are up and about. There's only 4 individuals out. I think the rest are still sleeping. So typically the last that would have gone down into the burrow last night would be the first to emerge this morning. Oopsie. And coming out from that burrow from a very chilly evening is very, very important that you are an individual, that you know what you're doing, because you just don't want to come running out here. You want to emerge with caution and definitely the utmost respect. See the large one standing upright on the right hand side. That's the pregnant female. Riley, so not all of these entrances are interlinked. A few of them are into a central chamber, and the depth of these burrow systems goes down about a meter and a half. We have actually done work on these burrows to see the extensive interlinked network that these little animals create underground. So you'd find a few entrances leading to a central chamber, and these meerkats need a few of them linked, because if there is a threat that follows them or goes down there to snack on one of these little meerkats, they need a secondary escape route. So not all of them are interlinked. You'll find that a few on this side, where we're on the eastern side of this burrow system, you'd find that maybe 4 or 5 burrows are linked together. And then off to my left-hand side, my western side, there's a few more burrow systems leading into another chamber, but those 2 chambers might be separated from each other. And I think they are more than likely. I've never seen a meerkat go down on the far eastern side and end up on the western side. They normally, if they go down on the eastern side, they normally end up at one of these burrow systems. They emerge at one of these burrow systems close to us over here. But it's a very, very complex system under there. And that central chamber is where they would reside. And they would actually be very, very close, almost snuggling one another through the chilly evening periods. Obviously, their sociability, they are one of the most sociable or social animals there are. So exchanging body warmth, which would be a very important thing for a small-bodied animal such as this. And then obviously utilizing that sun now to absorb some radiation. Solar radiation is very, very important. Craig, There's a giraffe on top there if you want to know. You can just see its neck. Now just hold on. Justin, these meerkat burrows go down into the earth about 1 meter to about 1.5 meters. It doesn't sound very deep, but it doesn't need to be very deep. If you think about the temperature 20 centimeters into the soil, the temperature is fairly stable and you don't have a large fluctuation of temperature. To regulate one's body or internal core temperature, you don't want to be battling with hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. If you have a stable environment, that means that the body can be doing what it needs to do in a regular manner or a very stable manner. So the meter and a half, these meerkats don't need to go deeper. And it is a suitable environment for them to reside at night time. But still, that is remarkable ability, 1.5 meters under the ground. Just keep digging, just keep digging. Just think about like Nemo. Instead of just keep swimming, just keep digging. That's what they do. They obviously exhibit a very, very strong digging behavior. You see it there? So 1.5 meters under the ground, Justin, that is enough for them to seek shelter. And then within their territory, they'll have multiple burrow systems such as this. Craig's going to give us a view of a giraffe in the... Where is he gone? He's hiding. We've got a giraffe on this dune that is due west of us. You got him, Craig? He's hiding. He heard that the camera was coming towards him, and I think he dropped. It's just really nice to see a giraffe from that distance, because from that distance you can see, oh, there's his head. Got him. You can see how small that animal really looks. And a great question was asked yesterday. I actually didn't finish it off correctly. Whereas in these animals at about 3 years, the males will break off in bachelorhood, and the females, I've totally forgot about the ladies, they tend to stay in these natal groups. But very nice to see how small that animal is and the distance that we deal with here. Swallow. What is that? Some jackal in the distance as well. But we'll look at them now. But we're going to enjoy the sunrise with these lovely meerkats. But for now, let's send you over to Steve, and he's got some impala.
Welcome back to the open expanse of quarantine, where we've officially given up our search for the Nkuhuma Pride, who have clearly caught a jet plane somewhere. I think maybe a helicopter came in the night and picked them up. What do you think, impalas? Is that what happened? Now, a set of impala is squashed up on the sort of southern side, or should I say the eastern side of quarantine. We mentioned earlier this morning at the start of the show there were some impalas on the northern western side, Bushbra side. I'm guessing it was Tlalamba, but she's since disappeared off road into the thickets, and that is the end of that. There's a little baby trying to nurse. Come on, mama, help me out. Eventually they just get too big to nurse, because that's quite an awkward position, isn't it? Ooh, and there's an elephant. Here comes the master bull and an elephant. He's going to walk straight through the herd of impalas. You can tell by the way he's moving his head posture. Give it a moment. The head posture and the way his trunk's moving, that he's in must. Now, I haven't made certain of that yet, but just the way he's swaggering makes me feel like he's in must. We will notice, or we'll know soon enough. Talking about size of animals, as Carl was talking about, it's Well, it's interesting to see how big an elephant is versus the other animals. And I am not going to move. I am parked here in my spot. If he wants to walk around us, he is most welcome to. You see the swagger, everybody? He's so much swagger. I can't yet tell if he's in must. He's being very cheeky, though. Ah, wonderful shots. Where's he going? He's going to walk up to a marula tree. No, he's going to have a look at some food there. He doesn't seem to be in must. I don't see his penis sheath dribbling. So I think he's just being full of nonsense. Yeah, there's some marulas that have fallen over there that he wants to get hold of. I mean, impalas are not too concerned. They've never been caught or eaten by an elephant. They just have to move sometimes out the way. And that's okay for them. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but in the distance is the call of the southern ground hornbills. Tristan and I went for lunch in Bufusuk the other day with some of the landowners for Milkberry. And Tristan was telling me, because we found a group of 3 along the way, and he said that he heard that they're breeding at the moment. It's very likely southern ground hornbill, very slow breeders. Now, you probably can't hear the call, so have a listen to my hat. Polly, I love it when elephants have got attitude. I love it. And when they're big like that, they're allowed to have attitude because, well, who's going to tell them otherwise? I like it when they behave like that with me as well, because when they come closer, you can talk to them like you would to a child or a human being who's behaving a little bit badly. You could just be like, why are you behaving like that? And they respond very well. They respond like, I'm not behaving in any sort of way. How dare you assume I was behaving in any sort of way? Impalas are just taking it really easy. And you can see the mixed herds at the moment. It's going to start changing soon. Soon, next month or so. Already some males are starting to demarcate sort of areas. The woodland kingfishers flying around, letting us know that they have demarcated their areas already, and the southern ground hornbill. The reason for their loud booming call is for territory. They are demarcating a very certain amount of space that requires enough food for them to support not only themselves but one chick. Now, we spoke about the Nkuhuma pride using scent as a form of territory, and they will call as well to advertise occupancy. But most birds, all birds as far as I'm aware, use call. There might be a bit of display, but birds don't use smells or scent in any way. Well, very interesting. It sounds like Tristan's tracked down some birds, though, that aren't making any noise.
And it is amazing that we managed to find them. Hopefully they don't fly down now and disappear. They're disappearing down. But those are 2 ground hornbills. They were calling so nicely for us. I was parked very far away because I didn't want to disturb them and make them fly. But, you know, birds are birds. And if you're not live, and trying to get them on camera is near impossible because they always just do this. As you kind of get them, they fly away. But I'll go around. I'm hoping they're hunting on this firebreak area. Maybe they'll be kind of trying to find some food in this area, and they'll be walking around and grabbing all the insects, and I'm sure there'll be the odd tortoise that is around. with weather like we've got right now. Also have tracks for a big male leopard in this area. They have gone north towards Buffalo's Hook. I haven't followed them too much yet because I was a bit concerned about the weather. It was starting to rain a little bit. You can probably see a few little spots on my dashboard here. So I was just concerned, is he gifting her? I don't know, he's chasing something in the grass, or one of them's chasing something in the grass, but when you find pairs like this, sometimes you'll find the male gifts the female all kinds of prizes. So if he catches a snake or chameleon or tortoise or lizard, grasshopper, then he goes and he gives it to the female as a basically token of his love for her. But that has not happened today. I can't see nicely which one is in the grass and which one's on the road. I haven't actually looked at binos yet. Hold on. It's not that easy when they've got their backs to you, because sexing these birds, you need to see under their beak. The females will have a little purplish patch and the males just straight red. But you see how they walk along and they're slowly looking for any sign of food that they can potentially grab. They have big, beautiful eyes that are able to pick up all kinds of movement, and they like to hunt on the fringes of the roads like this because they often can spot things a lot easier than in the grass itself. So they walk along the road and then they grab what they need and then back onto the road again. But yeah, that leopard I think is gone up into Buffalo's Hook, so maybe it's either Tingana or Mulawati, one of the two of them, big adult male leopard. If the rain moves, which it looks like it's going to, it looks like we've got some blue sky coming our way, so we should be okay. And then we'll be able to kind of catch up with those tracks and follow them along. I'm trying to see if I can see their footprints here, because they've got a really cool track. It's very, very large, but I don't see it clearly. The roads are so hard after this rain. It's not easy to see their footprints at the moment. The southern ground hornbill populations are not good. Their numbers have declined heavily across much of their range. They now in the Kruger system, they're doing okay. There's a lot of monitoring that's taking place, and there's a whole project because of the numbers declining and the way that their nesting works. So these guys will nest in these hollowed out trees most of the time. And so there's been a massive reduction in trees big enough to house these guys. These are big birds outside of natural areas. So there's been big projects to set up nesting boxes for them that they can find a suitable habitat to nest in. And then what they're doing is, because the chicks, when they have two eggs, and the two chicks hatch, one will kill the other one, so they have siblicide. What they do is the researchers go, the first chick hatches, they then take the egg of the second chick, because that second chick is the one that will be killed. It's born much more underdeveloped after a few days, and the other one will kill it. So they take the second egg, then they artificially hatch it and raise that chick and then reintroduce them back to the wild. So that's helping a little bit to keep the numbers steady. But their numbers are not great outside of these game reserves. They unfortunately have succumbed to habitat loss. The toxins that are put into crops means that they sometimes feed off things that are laced with toxins that end up killing them. Power lines. There's all kinds of things that are damaging to ground hornbills. They unfortunately have had a tough time. Here in Djuma, though, we don't see that many of them. These two hang around, and then every now and then we see, other kind of individuals coming through. But for the most part, it's just these two. All right, they're going to disappear down the road. I'm not going to go and chase them or kind of drive too close. We'll let them carry on. In the meantime, let's send you across to Kyle. He's managed to catch up with his meerkats.
Yes. Good morning. Everybody has decided to come out. Craig's just changed the angle for us to give us a little bit more of a view on that burrow entrance. And I mean, that is not a small amount of soil that meerkat is now sitting on. And that is a heap of soil. So wind and as well as water would obviously move soil back into that burrow system, where this maintenance behavior is a constant day-to-day activity. Especially after the heavy rains that we had, a lot of water would have moved soil and sediment into the chambers and as well as tunnels where that stuff has to be moved out. Northern black cordon shouting in the distance. Well, Ruth, standing watch is a behavior that is displayed throughout the day. Typically, it's a male that takes over that role, and you would find that he would be in that role for a couple of hours. That could vary, and then he would have an individual, one of his clan members, that would relieve him. So obviously, you are sharing this duty. Labor of division is a very important way in which these meerkats ensure safety at all times, but then also in how they thrive within these environments. So you have multiple individuals that can take over the role and keep a watchful eye out. That young meerkat busy watching the swallow fly over, rocking backwards and forth there, was falling asleep. Oh. So sentry duty is a very important role that gets played out here. And the individual that is in that role for that period takes it very, very seriously. Ooh, I didn't catch the person's name, the viewer's name, but I did catch the question. How long are meerkats pregnant for? Typically, they are pregnant for between 60 and 80 days. That's quite long for a tiny little animal. If you look at a wild dog, it's around about the same period. So between 60 and 70 days is the general give and take. And then obviously utilizing a burrow system like this when she gives birth, because it is the place which is most safe and comfortable for those little ones. And then she has mammary glands on the underside of her belly, and she has 6 abdominal mammary glands that she will use to suckle the young for the beginning period. So she will be locked in this burrow system for about 2 weeks roughly, and then you'll find that she then moves off. She goes and forages, and then she actually puts somebody in charge. Another individual from the clan puts another individual in charge to look after the young. So when she is pregnant for that rough 60 to 70 days, her weight would increase at about 40%. Her body mass would increase around about 40%. And then she could typically give birth to anywhere between 3 to 5 young. And in favorable periods like we are in now, she can have multiple litters within a given season. So she could have a litter now, and then in a couple of months down the line, she can have another litter. So I've seen meerkats have 3-4 litters a year, which is great. And the little ones are tiny, only about 13 grams when they are born. And because they are so tiny and obviously they lose a lot of body heat, so being exposed to the elements out here wouldn't be good for them. So they remain in the burrow system for about 2 odd weeks. Depends on what's going on, because now Veronique recently saw the brand new ones at the Makala group. And that's because the temperatures were very, very cold because of the rain that we received. And they've actually brought these little ones out earlier. Just very, very incredible. But we're not going to be here for much longer, but let's for now send you over to Steve for a short bit.
where he's got an elephant for you folks. Here he comes. Hello, big fella. Yes, you're a massive big boy, aren't you? Would you like some coffee? Now, he's choosing to do this, everybody. He's choosing to come as close as he wants to. And now he's going to walk behind our car. To the next marula tree he goes. We're going to turn around and follow. We love spending time with these big fellas, don't we? And Paul? Yes, we do. Now, it's important to know that we've been watching him for some time, haven't we? And his behavior hasn't been one of aggression. He's a little bit naughty. He's being a little bit cheeky, as elephant bulls do. They just give him a little head shake. I think he definitely might be on his way into must. Definitely not showing the typical signs on the penis sheath of doing so, but his head posture and behavior is definitely indicate. Oh. What a beautiful view as he walks down the hill. He's on his way down to Gowrie Dam. And we will follow. Wonderful skies in the background. Now he's decided, actually, I'm going to go to Tambeta and have a drink. Nicole, 8 years old, thinks it looks like he's dancing to music. Now, what music, Nicole, would you put to him? A little bit of a head shake music. So he was going to go down to Gowrie Dam, and he's decided, no, I'm going to go to Tambeta, which is just there. He actually is going to be waiting behind this bush for us. It's going to give us a head shake. No, he's going straight to the watering hole, which is Tambeta. It's a watering hole just in front of the new lodge there that used to be where many of our staff actually stayed. Now he's thinking. He's smelling something on the ground and he's going, what do I smell? Maybe those trees have got marulas. Maybe that's the one there he's been looking for. Let's move up again and see if we can get him feeding. We're still going to be very limited. Oh, he's going to go down the hill. Still going to be very limited with off-road driving, so we won't drive off-road for an elephant. Allow everything to just sort of really, really dry up. Maybe he's going to take us to the lions. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I've never been taken to lions before by an elephant, but it's always the first time. I think he's actually just going to go from tree to tree, so we're going to lose him now. But that is what it is. If we do lose him now, we'll arrange our plans. We'll start heading north. Maybe even pop into Simbambili for a moment. Okay, well, we're going to try and get another view of this elephant, but it sounds like Twalu has got their meerkats out and about. So let's quickly send you over to them.
Well, while Steve repositions there, I'm sure we can keep you folks entertained this side. Just keep digging. You can see the soil just being displaced there from the burrow entrance. And the young ones are being very playful at the moment. And then you can see Mom up on that mound of soil. She is just keeping vigilance to a very, very high degree. We did have Jackal far in the distance. Meerkats will be able to see that far. There's a springbuck there to give you a reference on how far it was. If Craig can just show us, there's just the top right-hand corner. Obviously, the eyesight of meerkats is phenomenal. Sorry? Whoopsie, whoa. But yes, jackal would definitely be a terrestrial predator that meerkats would have to watch out for. And then for the long-time viewers, you guys would know African wildcat that Dylan found and unfortunately took one of these members out through the thick and very dense bushy areas of this elephant, elandsbeen. I'm thinking about elephants. Oh, baboons shouting at the mountains. Bow! Olive, have the meerkat groups ever fought with one another? I've never seen a physical fight, but I've read that they can be quite vicious. They'll obviously vocalize to try and deter an opposing group, and then showing visual signs. So if you look at a meerkat's general appearance, the way that it holds its tail and moves its body can be a way of non-vocal communication. And I've seen them displace another group by doing this beautiful rocking, display. So I don't know how to explain. Literally, rocking. So the meerkat jumps and gives us like rock, and then lands on the ground, and then gives a little jump and rocks again. And that's a very aggressive posture from a meerkat group. It's showing them, the opposing group, that we mean business. So scent is a way on how they deter one another. Scent marking is a very important behavior displayed by meerkats, being in the family group Herpestidae, which they have a specialized anal gland that is used for scent marking. But then if groups do see each other, then visually they want to show that group, hey, we mean business. Because like I've mentioned before, animals don't have that very destructive nature of wanting to engage in conflict. Human beings are the only animals that I know that actively want to engage in conflict all the time. Animals want to avoid that at all costs. So there's one or two tactics to displace and ward off opposing groups. Oop. Some ants maybe. But they can be quite aggressive from what I've read in my time. So most of the young ones locked onto us. So these young ones aren't as relaxed as the Mikado group. Ruth, what is their lifespan? So for a small animal like this, their lifespan is quite lengthy. If you look at general size, you would think maybe an animal at this size would live for 4 or 5 years. But from illustration and obviously documentation, they can live for anywhere for between 8 and 10 years. And it's quite a long lifespan for such a small organism. And that's also why they become very highly sought after as pets, unfortunately, because of their lifespan. It's somewhat similar as a small dog. Unfortunately, they are utilized for that very, very unwanted activity, the pet trade. So people do have them as pets in their houses. I believe that they should just be left in the wild to do what they need to do, and not as a pet. Because some people actually remove their claws or cut their claws and then actually clip their teeth so that they can't inflict any damage on the owner. That is not nice at all. That makes every single cell in my body scream and
But this is where they should be. And obviously the impact that they have on the environment, controlling certain organisms like insects, is very, very important. But for now, let's see what Steve has. He's got something tall for you guys.
Well, they don't get much taller than this. There's a big, tall fellow that we encountered on our way. He wasn't very hard to find, although I didn't see him until the last minute. Although he is big and tall, they do blend in very, very well with the background. Very nice big male giraffe who is busy chewing the cud. Now, let's go right into his mouth and throat if we can. Now, watch the throat, everybody. As soon as he stops chewing, here you go, a little bit more. There we go. Now, right there, perfect. Now, watch him stop chewing. As soon as he stops chewing, he's busy. There we go. Watch the throat. Watch the neck. Here it comes. Oh, did you see that? Now, he's busy chewing, masticating, chopping up the vegetation, covering it in saliva. And he swallows it, and it goes down to the belly. The small parts sink to the bottom of the belly, which means they then go into, or the stomach. They then go into the next chamber. They are 4-chambered stomach, and any of the plant particles that are sitting on the top of the rumen itself that are floating get accumulated. Watch again. Watch the neck. Oh, he just vomited again into his mouth. How charming. Now, that is rumination, everybody. He chops and chops and grinds, and his teeth are there to break the vegetation down as much as possible. And then all those small plant parts will sink, and then they go into the next chamber in the stomach and eventually go through the process of digestion. But the first part of the stomach, the rumen, is where the breakdown happens, and the addition of saliva, which is loaded with microorganisms. And the saliva-loaded microorganisms need surface area. He did it again. Need surface area to break down. So the smaller the plant particles, the greater the potential of them to be broken down and utilized as food. Sando it is, isn't it? But you can actually see it with quite a number of animals, all the ruminants. So buffalo, there we go again. Watch the neck, and then the mouth will fill with leaves. Bloopsie. Isn't that funny? So you can actually see it in a number of ruminant animals, but no one shows it quite so well as a giraffe. And although he's standing here looking around, that rumination that he's doing is completely automatic. The chewing that he's doing is completely automatic, so he's not really requiring any brain capacity to do so. But now he's going to walk. The typical giraffe-like movement. The camel horse, as he's been called, because he walks like a camel and runs like a horse. Kameelperd is the Afrikaans name for a giraffe. And even in the scientific name, Camelopardalis is also there as well. So, there we go. He's dropping a few pellets on the ground. There's no time for resting. You're eating, ruminating, pooing. It all comes at the same time. There's no real stopping and starting. They don't take moments out of the day to go to the loo, but there you go. He's now going to eat some marula leaves. And by doing so, he actually just takes a whole lot of leaves, puts them in the mouth. He might add a bit of saliva, but he doesn't need to do that. He just has to put a few in his mouth and swallow. And they will come back up in the process of rumination. Arnold, well, I will find you some pellets and I'll show you what the texture looks like. But essentially, the first chopping up process breaks down those particles quite finely, and all the small bits fall to the bottom of the stomach. They get filtered down, and anything that's large sits on top of the stomach, and that is what comes up. So most of the stuff that gets re-chewed is stuff that hasn't been chewed before, or maybe didn't quite get chewed to the degree that he requires it to go through the digestive system. So it goes through the rumen, then it's the reticulum, the omasum, and then out in abomasum in the fourth chamber. And each process has different attributes, nutrient absorption, removal of liquid, and then eventually into the small intestine, where not as much sort of absorption takes place as in your non-ruminants. Non-ruminants, they got much more sort of intestinal space for absorption, but a lot of the breakdown happens inside the gut itself. And there we go, a little sickle bush to add to it. Very, very nice sickle bush, very tasty. And a little head scratch while you're at it on the apple leaf tree. That's a wonderful little scratch. Okay, well, we might spend another few more moments with our giraffe and see what he eats next.
You are cheeky. That was a brave decision. Amber Eyes is... Oh. That is so magic. That was absolutely wonderful. Amber Eyes just gave that cub an enormous hug.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
What makes Anbion Pinder Private Game Reserve so special is our massive array of habitats. And with that comes, of course, a beautiful diversity of landscapes, but also an incredible biodiversity in terms of plants, bird life and animal life, as well as, of course, our conservation success stories with cheetah, with rhinos, now with pangolins too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth. Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at Anbion Pinder Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
In a world full of upheaval, we all need a quiet and safe space to breathe. A place where anxiety and stress don't exist. A place where life carries on as normal. Escape to nature with Wild Earth.
The ticks have become extremely itchy. Now we could put some music on for the dance, couldn't we? He got a bit of a scratch there. It wasn't anything very satisfying. This bush now, he's going to walk over it, is he? Let's see if he's going to walk over it. He's first going to check it. Apple leaf again. I don't really like to eat you, apple leaf, but let's just show everybody that we can eat you. Some of the new growth, that is. It's not a tree you find being eaten very often. Okay, well, we're going to send you back over to Tswalu, and when they're Meerkats, well, we spend some more time with our beautiful giraffe.
So, how fast can meerkats move? So I'm not exactly sure on a specific speed, but they are very fleeting and quick on the foot. They're really spending a lot of time here at the burrow system today, which is great. But I think they are going to start moving off. See, one adult has gone to the other side of the burrow. Yesterday they moved off the east, or slightly northeast, and we'll see today which direction they move. Obviously they want to change up that direction, because yesterday they would have used a certain route, and on that route they would have depleted resources from point A to point B. And so typically within a few days they change the route up so that they are allowing insects and other forms of animals to recuperate within that area that they've utilized, but then as well as it's also giving them the best chance at finding available prey. Rhino Girl, I'm glad that you like the rock stars, and then I'm very happy that we are here and we are viewing this specific group for you. And we obviously have, over the period that some of our long viewing viewers have been with us, we have built a very, very lengthy story on these guys. I mean, remember when we very first started with Safari Live, this is the initial group that we started with. So there's a lot of ties into this group, and very strong relationships built here. Yeah, we are definitely starting to move off. So they'll go off from here and then forage for the rest of the day, and then more than likely returning to this burrow somewhere around 5:30, 6 o'clock. Last one, making sure that everybody's safe, nobody's sneaking up behind them. let's send you over to Steve with his tall animal.
Back with us with our big giraffe, who is using his strong neck muscles to pull his head down to feed now on looks like a river thorn. Now you see, the benefit of the giraffe's long neck is not only to give them access to the tallest of trees, they're also able to stick their heads in very deep into bushes, and they're also able to feed quite low down. So they are the optimum feeders, and you never see giraffe doing badly. Even in times of drought, the giraffe always seem to be doing well. And so although they have developed this very tall, ungainly, sort of unbalanced nature, they really don't struggle when it comes to feeding. And now he's feeding on a russet bushwillow. Or is that a red? Looks like it might be a red, in fact. So you see these short bursts of feeding. You got a little bit of marula, a little bit of apple leaf, a little bit of river thorn, some bush willow, and once his belly's full, he'll then go stand somewhere, or even sit and chew the cud. So very sort of important behavioral adaptations that ruminants have. They can feed, fill their belly in times when it's cooler, more accessible. Aha. It's actually another giraffe on the way. That's what he was looking at. I wonder if we might see a little bit of necking today. I'll let you know. He's looking directly at the other giraffe, but I'll let you know when he becomes available to see. There's another big male giraffe might pop out, and, well, that could be interesting. Could go from a nice, relaxed morning of feeding to a competitive one. No doubt, a big fella like this will know a little of the other fellow who's also very big. Lee, you want to know how they're able to eat thorn trees? Well, the giraffe's lips are very tough, and their tongue is like a leather belt. And as the thorns have evolved, so the giraffe's ability to eat them has evolved. Not only did they develop a long neck so as to access food, they also developed the necessary mouth parts to be able to feed on those foods as well. So it's a constant battle. They've evolved with the trees. It's not that the giraffe just sort of suddenly became a long animal with the ability to feed on these things. The thorns were not there in the first place. The acacias we find in southern Africa or South Africa have all got thorns. Acacia comes from the word acaria, which means to bear thorns. But in Australia, they've got acacias there that do not have thorns. They've never evolved with herbivore pressure, maybe mainly insect pressure, so those plants are very chemically based. They don't have any thorns, so the tree themselves have evolved different mechanisms. And there's been quite a few studies where, for example, you could take two acacia trees, put them right next to each other, put a cage around one, and leave the other one exposed. And the one that gets fed upon, because it doesn't have a cage, will develop more strong thorns and more defense than the one that gets left alone. The one that gets left alone will still have some thorns, but it won't be as strongly defended as the tree that was left completely alone. I've seen studies, I've been involved in studies myself, and even on the other day I did a discussion on buffalo thorns. The buffalo thorn that I collected out in the bush that was very well utilized, it was even broken by elephants, was very tough, very spiny. The thorns were very strong, and the branches that I got from the one in camp that pretty much get left alone apart from the nyala were very soft, very delicate, and very sweet. So even in the same area over a short period of time, these plants develop differently. And we're talking about eons of time that have gone past, that the giraffe that was once a short little animal has become this tall beast of a thing. And so thorns are really nothing to a giraffe. They actually quite enjoy the thorny trees. Quite a lot of animals will chew on bones. They'll also chew on dung as well as soil. It's all got to do with mineral deficiencies. And bone is full of calcium. And some animals might be lacking in those, and they know what to feed on. They know what to access. We take supplements. We probably would do so anyway, even if we weren't told to by our family. We would eventually start feeling a certain way and would start eating things. The diet that we have in general as humans often leads us to feed on certain things. And if we have different diets, then we know we have to supplement. We're not getting iron, we're not getting calcium, or whatever it might be. We need to take supplements for that. Animals are very, very clued up on what they're missing and what's needed in nature. And you'll often find giraffe and kudu, especially pregnant kudu and giraffe, feeding on bone so as to access the necessary calcium for the development of the fetus. Tortoises will feed on bone as well as on hyena dung, which sounds quite disgusting, but it's to help them develop their bone and their calcification of potentials. Warthog, porcupine, all will feed on bone. And obviously, as we know, many and all the scavengers and all the predators that we know feed on bone. Even if they weren't predators, they'd probably at some point feed on bone to get that necessary nutrients. So many soils are quite rich in lots of minerals that might be missing. That's why if you ever know of farmers that have grazing cattle or whatever animals they might have, they often put out licks, specifically salt licks, which are loaded with all sorts of minerals and nutrients that might be missing in the area. I know down in the Southern Cape, copper is a very, very big nutrient that's missing, so that needs to be added to the licks, because a lot of the micronutrients that we in general get through our food, if it might be lacking in an area and you're trying to grow animals or farm animals, you need to supplement it. Otherwise, deficiencies can lead to deformities, can lead to all sorts of weird and wonderful changes in animals. And so animals will choose to feed on soil, bone. Some animal will feed on the dung of their mothers when they're born. I've seen that with elephant. And that is to give them the necessary gut enzymes to break down the food that they feed on. Very famous study of white rhinos in the 70s. White rhinos were completely, black and white rhinos were completely decimated from the Kruger National Park. And they were reintroduced from KwaZulu-Natal under a big program headed by Dr. Ian Player. And very, very famous study. Obviously, they didn't know what they were doing in the beginning. Slowly but surely over time, they figured it out, the trial and error. Lots of things worked, lots of things didn't. But what they realized is that the rhino they were putting into the Kruger from KwaZulu-Natal weren't surviving, and they didn't know why. And then they started putting them into bomas, little sort of enclosed areas where they could monitor them. And then they still weren't doing well. And then what they noticed is that if they could take dung from rhino that were in the area and they could mix it in with the food of the rhinos that they were bringing in, that bacteria and gut flora enzyme sort of activity was put into the system, and then those rhinos are able to digest the food that they were feeding on. So many animals will feed on the dung of their parents so as to get that gut flora. And there's huge debate and there's huge discussion in human birth that there is obviously, no doubt, in natural human birth, there's some transference of that sort of thing into the gut flora of babies, which enables children to sort of have a much better ability to digest and cope with foods that are on offer. There's lots of studies going into that these days. Differences between C-sections and natural births and how they're impacting on the digestive systems with regards to allergies and the like in humans.
Steve is talking about research, we've been following a male leopard track that's decent. It's a fresh track, but he's just eluding us. We had, where the track's kind of cut off, we had the impalas alarming, went in there, but the grass is about this high over my head, so cut off right here into the block. Unfortunately, no sign of him. I did check a little bit in there just to see if I could get him, but no luck. It's just too thick and the grass too long. If he's not walking or up on a mound, I'm not going to have any luck finding him. So that's unfortunately that. I was just doing a loop again just to see if he didn't pop back out somewhere. I can't find where the impalas went. I saw them briefly when I was on foot, and then they were alarming in this block. But when I went in, I couldn't find them or any sign of this cat, which is a shame. I don't know who it is. I mean, it could be Tingana, it could be Mulawati. It's impossible to know which one from the tracks. I don't really know Mulawati's route because we see him so seldomly. But if it's Tingana, normally Tingi likes to come back to the roads if he's been seen. He likes to kind of do his thing, and if he gets shouted at, then it's back to the road in order to kind of sit and lie and walk down and be more comfortable. Although, sometimes what happens when these impalas spot a leopard in thick bush like that, they just lie down for a while and let the so-called storm pass. And then you find that they eventually come out only much later in the day. No, he hasn't come out. It's quite frustrating because it's quite far north. There's quite a big block, so finding him would be very difficult. All right, so we're going to carry on. We're going to try to see if we can find any sign of him somewhere here. Well, we haven't gone very far, everybody. Sounds like we're having some difficulty elsewhere, so we will just stay with our giraffe and see what he gets up to, and it seems as if he's going to be feeding from bush to bush in the early morning. Again, another bush willow. It is the red bush willow after all, not the russet. The leaves are just quite small at the moment. They haven't grown to full potential, but they stand up quite tall and quite sharp. No pods on them, which often makes it very easy to identify. Very high in tannin. You can make a very nice tea out of the leaves of the red bush willow. I always find it easy to remember because rooibos is a very nice tree used in South Africa. Andreas, you want to know how they get the blood up? The heart in the giraffe is actually very, very well designed. So if you know anything about pressure, pressure requires pushing a liquid up from one place to another, and the higher the pressure, the smaller amount of liquid gets pushed up at a time, but I'm not explaining it very well. But the giraffe's heart, if we think about our own heart, our ventricle side, our arterial side, are both, the thickness of the walls are quite similar. Whereas a giraffe, the side that pumps the blood out to the brain and to the body, with the oxygenated blood, the wall gets thicker for every centimeter that the giraffe's neck grows. Every centimeter or foot longer that the giraffe's neck goes, so the wall of the giraffe's heart increases in thickness. And so what that means is that the cavity inside that side, the oxygenated part of the heart,
gets quite small, but what that means is it increases the potential of the pressure to push blood up into the brain. So when the neck is quite short, the thickness of that wall is less, and as the height of the giraffe gets longer, so does the thickness of that wall, which just increases the pressure to be able to push that blood up. So it's a very, very well-designed mechanism that's obviously taken a very long time to work. And together with the pressure in that blood moving up, you'd think the giraffe is going to fall over from high blood pressure at any time. But he's not, because the capillary network of where the blood arteries and capillaries go into the brain are actually enabled to slow the blood down for when his head is too high or too low. So there's a constant amount of pressure of blood going into the back of the brain. So, I mean, how many times have you felt when your head's a bit low for a moment and you stand up quickly, you get that rush of blood out of the brain and you feel a bit lightheaded and dizzy and you fall over? The giraffe doesn't have that problem because of that network of capillaries in the back of the head that slows the blood going into the brain and then also slows it coming out. So when his head does drop below the heart, that pressure that would be pumping that blood up doesn't overwhelm his brain, otherwise it would explode. And when he stands up again, it also doesn't overwhelm because it's a very slow trickle in either direction. And discussed the other morning, the giraffe leg bones are very, very strong. They're not thin or narrow or full of marrow like many other animals' bones. They're very thick, solid bones designed for keeping the weight of the giraffe up. And then the skin is very tight along his legs all the way down to his feet, which keeps the blood pressure very tight along the legs. And astronauts from NASA actually have used the giraffe to design socks or pants which enable their astronauts to not lose pressure and to not have blood pooling in their legs and feet when they're going under G-force gravities. Because when you're going under G-force gravity, the blood from the head is forced down to the feet. But because they wear these tight socks designed after the giraffe, it keeps the blood from doing so, and so keeps it in the brain. Okay, I don't know what the coldest weather giraffes can have, but they occur in Africa where generally our temperatures don't get below 7 degrees Celsius that I've known of. But they are a big animal. Let me move forward so we can get a look. They're a big animal that takes a long time to warm up and hence also a long time to cool down. So they're not too concerned with short periods of cold weather, but where they occur naturally in their habitat doesn't get that cold. We might feel quite cold in our winter months, but very rarely is frost ever occur in these areas. And a big animal like that, they've got no real concern with it getting too cold, but they don't occur in very cold climates. See, so his head is down at the moment. So having the head down like that, you can imagine there's a little bit of pressure of the blood pumping, because the blood that's trying to push itself all the way up to the brain is now pushing at a much easier angle. So it could cause all sorts of issues in the head, but due to those capillaries in the back of the brain that slow down the amount of blood going in, and then the same as he stands up, slow down the release of that blood. Otherwise, the giraffe would constantly be falling over and hitting their head. And that is one of the biggest causes of mortality in giraffe, is them falling down and damaging their head. Okay, well, it sounds like Tswala Kalahari has found some giraffe. I wonder if they're cooler than this fellow.
Highest form of mortality is when they fall. That's very interesting. And if you take a look at that, it'll be... This is also a very broadly asked question is, would male or female be caught more often? and typically male because of their solitary form of lifestyle. Female being in herds, obviously there's more eyes, more ears, and especially in the Greater Kruger, they've done studies that males are caught almost 2 times more than that of females. So unfortunately for the males, but solitary form of lifestyle does come with its pros and cons. And these giraffe just standing on that first dune. It's the first dune that goes out west. We are directly due east of them, as if they weren't tall enough. Alpha Dog, what is a giraffe's best defense? Those very, very large hooves. So a hoof is very large. A big bull, I think it'd be anywhere about 15 odd centimeters long. And it obviously that keratin sheath or layer that grows around the bone is very, very hard. So a giraffe can kick and it could inflict serious damage onto a lion or any type of threat, and then as well as stomping on the item as well, or the threat. And a giraffe is fairly hefty. Even a female, the weight of a female would crush and fracture bones of a lion if she had to physically stand on lion. So running would be one way, but then obviously, like Steve mentioned there, falling is one way on how injuries would take place. And obviously a giraffe's footing could be lost, but if it was on close quarters, defense-wise, lashing out with its front and rear hooves, and then as well as stomping on the animal itself. Very, very dangerous. I've come very close to seeing very, very bad injuries when game capturing giraffe, and their legs just go out at a volatile rate, and they just almost like they have no control, like they're almost spasming, how their legs get lashed out, and can be very, very dangerous. Craig, on the road with you? On the road here, folks, we've got a beautiful bird. I think we have seen this bird before. Here it is. Yes, well, we've got a view of it. That is a spike-heeled lark. You can see from the lack of tail that it is possessing. Rusty little patch as well that is presented there. And typical of this bird, you should find a few of them together. Yes, there's another one. Typically find them in small parties, so 2 to 5 birds. There's another one, a spike-heeled lark. Lovely. You can see that very distinctive white throat patch clearly displayed. And that rusty little cheek patch that's also very prominently displayed. And it's got a very, very short tail. And in flight, that tail is obviously splayed, very short, and it's got a white trailing edge on it. Collecting, look at that. So like larks do, they create nests that are concealed within tufts of grass. And this grassy section that is just to the right of us is perfect for the nesting of that beautiful species. As you can see, it's collecting a lot of items there, so more than likely has a little nest here somewhere, and it will go feed the chick. And the concealment is obviously the best form of defense when you are nesting on the grassy plains like this over here. There comes another one. Whoa. Their call makes me think of a water bird, something like a little wader. Kim, a new bird on the list. Great stuff. I wonder how many birds we have seen while with you folks. since the start. I wonder how many, if anybody has a list and if you have a total, let us know what your total tally is, and we can compare of how many birds we have seen on this wonderful and vast landscape. And when you do start birding, get into it, grassland birding, or these little LBJs, little brown jobs, definitely do become a focus after a period of birding. It looks like it's collecting nest material. It is. Let's see where it flies. Maybe we can find the nest. Oh la la. Did you see where it went down, Craig? Okay, so Craig's got it in view there. So if you take a look at the dark patches, that is elandsbeen. And then in amongst that elandsbeen, you can see the grass stems coming up with the inflorescence. So typically grass grows from a central point, and that central point is perfect for a bird to hollow out a little dome or little cavity at which they will line the nest, and that would be suitable for laying eggs and then rearing the chicks. But now think about all the predators. We've got snakes, we've got jackal, we've got mongoose, which mongoose are very, very sneaky animals, and how they evade all those predators is remarkable. I think that is the nest site. When you are looking at nests and you want to ID them and have a close look, obviously just respect all the time, guys. It is a beautiful thing, and it really becomes very sorry, FC, you're going to have to go with that again, please. Dolly, do all birds build their nests the same way? No, they are very, very varied across the board. The variety of structures, places, material varies between bird groups. So typically you'll have larks that enjoy these grassy plains, and they would typically find tufts of grass in order to create nests. Woodpeckers preferred cavities, which they would excavate with their ability of, chiseling wood away. You'd find weavers, they typically weave nests. So depending on the family group, that within that family group they have a general, somewhat similar breeding or nest-making behavior. But yeah, depending on the species, that would vary across the diverse group of birds that we have in South Africa. And they have to be very clever at it. Very, very clever. So, whoa! That sound you heard was the eastern clapper lark. Just hold on there, Craig. Just stay there. So the bird called. So it is already in a form of a territorial displacement. So by me calling, I'm not... Whoa. Eastern clapperlock. Watch. Wow. Just, have you got him there, Craig? Okay, cool. If you stay on him there, he should do it again. So he should fly vertically, flapping his wings very, very fast, where the tips are actually touching each other. There he goes. How incredible. $248. That is incredible. That is a very, very large number. And yeah, sure. Then you can just see the diversity of birds across the country itself. We are very lucky when it comes to bird species in this country. And that's why us guides get into it, because there's so many different species that it becomes so entertaining on a day-to-day basis. And then you utilize it. It's a tool that you utilize in conjunction with looking for animals, looking at grasses, looking at trees. It is all part of this building building platform that we have to be entertained and understand all of this out here. But beautiful display there from the eastern clapperlark, flying vertically and then on its ascent, flapping, and then its end of its wings touching and actually clapping, hence the name eastern clapperlark, a form of mechanical sound. And then as he descends, he gives that little whistle. Very incredible to see. Alrighty, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to move slowly west. Let's see if we can get another position. Ah, there is some more giraffe there.
Having a problem with the camera. I need to sort out before we can do anything.
Copy. So, so what we're going to do is we're going to move off slowly westward. And we're going to see if we can get you a better view on those lovely giraffe there. And but a very beautiful scene that we have in front of us. Let's maybe take a look at those giraffe out there, can we, Craig? Yeah.
Having a problem with the camera.
Slow.
I need to sort it out.
Okay. Well, so let's just try it. Craig will just try his best to get us there quickly. There you can hear the clapperlark going again. Alicia, when giraffe drink water, do they get dizzy? So they have special mechanics within the neck and then as well as just before the head that enables them not to get dizzy. Obviously, if we get up too fast, the blood rushing to our head, we sense dizziness. But they have very special mechanics, obviously, because their biology is extremely off the normal chart, so to say. So they have special tactics that allow them to go down to that position to drink water and then to come back up and not to get dizzy. Just like Steve said, a lot of the injury does come from giraffe falling over, losing its footing, and that would be very, very dangerous for a giraffe. So a giraffe would not want that at all costs, being lightheaded and losing its footing, because injury can take place once an animal lands at that weight and hits the ground. And then if it lays down like that, it will unfortunately die. A giraffe will never, ever, ever lay down flat on the ground. Its neck has to be up at all times. If it lays down flat like that, you have an immense amount of blood pressure rushing towards the head. The valves don't work in the correct manner, and the giraffe will experience some severe repercussions from that. But these giraffe looking very small on top of that dune over there. But let's send you off for a little bit and we'll reposition this vehicle and we'll see you back on board here.
Welcome back to Juma, everybody. We moved on from our giraffe. We're just going to head up towards the northwest. See if there's been any sign of the Talamatis. This is where we had the buffalo yesterday afternoon. Just going to have a look around Sydney's dam there, see if maybe they came in. Apparently they did, but I didn't see any tracks yesterday. I saw them definitely go out. But as you know, these animals are moving. Nothing to stop them from coming back. And wherever you find a herd of buffalo, you will be inundated with flies the next day, which is exactly what's going on with us right now. The flies follow the buffalo in the dung and they breed. It's all natural process, of course, but Paul doesn't like it very much, do you? No, he doesn't. We spend time with the migration herds. You see the flies and insects. Tony, the rainfall definitely have a positive impact on insects. Has a positive impact on everything. The rain is life. The rain gives life, provides life, regenerates. You see places like the Kalahari and the Namaqualand and even very deserty areas. Stop here for these impala on the cut line. You'll see that how quickly those areas can go from completely desolate to well-populated. And many flowers, wildflowers, and many insects have very short lifespan. And so the rain can arrive, you can see huge swarms of insects emerging and then dying off, and sometimes then their eggs can lay dormant until the next season. Guinea fowl? What have you seen? The impalas are looking at something. The guinea fowl are now responding. Let's go forward and have a look. That is a general alarm call, but lately they haven't been impressing me too much, these guinea fowl. Impala's shouting is far more reliable, as we discussed. But I do hope we don't lose signal. This is an area where we get a bit of a dip. And they've stopped now. Ooh, there's an elephant just crossing the road. He wouldn't be the cause of the alarm calls. Silence. Apart from my wheels crunching in the dirt. Let's first just show this guinea fowl behaving badly, and then as soon as you've had enough of his noise and antics, you can go over to Twalu Kalahari with Kyle, who has got a bit of view, it seems, of his giraffe.
Well, let's just readjust. He's a little bit shy. This is Timmy. Standing in the shade of a beautiful silver cluster leaf.
So besides having a very, very large heart, the heart is not strong enough to pump the blood all the way up to the head. If you look at that distance, that's about 2.5 meters, and that is obviously against gravity itself. So it's a very difficult task, and you would need a very, very large heart to push blood up against gravity through the arteries. So what they have is one-way valves running up towards the head that actually help and aid in pressure. So the heart pumps up through the valve, and then hence a one-way valve. So once it's gone through the valve, the pressure, if it wants to move back down, the valve then closes, stopping the blood from moving in the opposite direction. But now when the giraffe goes down for a drink, if you think about it, the network of blood vessels inside the head are very, very delicate themselves. So if you have all the excess pressure working with the valves, obviously it wouldn't be very good for a giraffe. So what actually happens, if you take a look at it, is that the neck is very muscular. Obviously it needs a very muscular neck to move the very, very heavy neck and head up and down for foraging. But there's actually a section of fine veins that run just before the base of the skull called the wonderful net. I've also heard the extraordinary net, and these actually lower the blood pressure to regulate the flow of blood to the brain. So what happens is the vessels expand when the giraffe lowers its neck to drink, and then to accommodate the excess blood flow under pressure, they contract smaller when the head is raised again. So you don't have this excess movement of blood towards the head. So they contract and then expand depending on where the head is. And that eliminates that dizzy effect. That's just blood rushing towards the head if you get up very quickly. But a wonderful system to eliminate this animal from getting dizzy. A lot of seed pods on that tree. See at the top parts of that tree, you can see all the little red or pink items. Those are seed pods. All right, this guy's hiding, but let's send you over to somebody who can hide even better.
Well, this little fella is not hiding much these days. He's always out and about. His Tundi's little cub that is now up, beautifully posing in the jackleberry tree. Is taking it very, very easy this morning. It's right where we left him, or where we found him yesterday afternoon. He's just come up a little bit towards the tree itself and is having a kind of beautiful view. You might see a little light every now and then. There's some photographers on one of the vehicles, so they sometimes use a little bit of a light just to fill in the shadow because of how dark it is this morning with the cloud cover. But we've had a kind of difficult morning in some respects. We've been following tracks for a male leopard miles. I had the tracks from Gari Dam all the way up Gari Cut Line, all the way along Buffelshoek boundary, into Buffelshoek, back out of Buffelshoek, down Cheetah Cut Line, all the way east to First Rock, and then we left because of the fact that we didn't have much in the way of signal. So I don't know who it is that's walked that distance. The tracks were getting really fresh by the end of it, but we unfortunately had to abandon the search. We also found tracks within Kahuma Pride, where they came out of Djuma. They went past Buffelshoek Dam and then out that way. So they obviously crossed in a hard section. For Steve not to have seen them, there's lots of hard sections around that block there they were in yesterday. And they went also all the way to First Rock, and then they turned and they've then gone kind of back west along Gari Main and south into Little Gari, by the looks of things. So it's a lot of movement from various different cats last night, and there's been a lot of following of little paw prints everywhere, for not much reward until now, which is good. The other bit of good news is that I asked a question yesterday about names and things like that, so I think the process for him getting a name has been started now. Hopefully we'll be able to figure out exactly what he's going to get called fairly soon, but they're going to ask the Djuma guides particularly to provide names for him, so that'll be good news, and we'll be able to give him something. There's a few that have been thrown around, so we'll see how it goes. James, you say Tandy's cub looks so adorable perched up on his branch. He does, doesn't he? He's such a beautiful little cat. When you find him on these branches like this, and it's such a pretty tree as well, that kind of contrast of that dark ebony from this jackalberry versus his spotted coat, and the way that he's just found himself in a nice little comfy spot is absolutely perfect. I was going to move, but unfortunately our signal here is so sketchy that we kind of have to stop and then wait for it to come back up. It doesn't stay if we move around, so we'll just be patient, and we'll move just now to get sort of more of his face looking at us. But for now, it's tail and bottom that we are seeing, and a little bit of a side eye every now and then when he feels like it. Pretty though, eh? So if this is what we've been talking about the last few days, is that the cats, you will find them in trees eventually, especially young cats like this. And because the lions walk pretty much past here, I wonder if he didn't see them at some point and decided, I'm going to go up a tree. Look at that face. Hello, beautiful boy. I think he's bored of waiting for Mom. I mean, it has been a full day since she left. I found her tracks also going way north. They were heading up towards the Buffelshoek Torchwood cut line. So she's obviously been busy during the course of the night. But his eyes in that sort of dark shadowed area just look absolutely beautiful, don't they? Alright, we're going to sit with this cat a little bit longer. I'm just going to reposition slightly so we get a slightly better shot. In the meantime, let's send you across to Steve, who I believe has found something large in the water. Welcome to Buffelshoek, everybody, where we had a hippo in this little puddle. I'm going to have to move back, though, to try and show it to you. It's moved away. Right next to the road, this little drainage culvert. Didn't mean to influence the hippo in any way. But obviously was out feeding last night and decided Sydney's dam was a little bit too far for it to go. You see it then, Paul? And there it walks. I'll probably go back down to the watering hole now. Just a little break along the way, you see. Like to submerge themselves in water. Sorry we can't get you a better view, but this is a live show, and the hippo has walked off. So we're going to continue on. Maybe we'll get a view coming around, but just now walked into the block and away. Just a little puddle on the side of the road. Who says hippos can't jump? Just jumped over that log. What's going on here? These shrikes are very upset with life. Long-tailed shrikes on my left-hand side. Actually a red-billed buffalo weaver in amongst. Oh no, it is a shrike. There might just be babies begging. Give us food, Mom. Give us food. We're hungry. Two chicks. The ones in the foreground, they have barely any tails. They're very used to getting what they want. And they are cooperative breeders after all, so the rest of the flock will be out getting them some food, and these two chicks will go, give us food, we're hungry. It's hard work being a chick. So cool to see. The typical begging posture. I wonder if I can spot the nest. They wouldn't have been... Oh, oopsie. That would have been funny. Nearly fell. Now the nest is normally a little ball hidden inside vegetation. It's possible that they've flown from one tree to another. The adult that was with him has now flown away to go and provide food, no doubt, for these very noisy little fellows. Okay, well, a few little youngsters on show today. We've got these two young little birds, and Tristan's got a better view of a young little boy leopard.
I'm talking about things on show. Tundi's cub is being an absolute treat. We've moved slightly so that we can see him a little bit better than what we did just now. Just now we had him kind of from the side mostly, but now you can see we can kind of get those beautiful eyes as he watches. I don't know what he is watching. Maybe there's a bird in this tree that he's busy gazing at. He is in a jackalberry after all. I don't see any jackalberry fruits though, so it's not attracting things like green pigeons, but maybe there's some birds that are moving around and landing and kind of making him fairly curious. Doesn't he look beautiful up there? He's kind of got himself into the most comfy little spot. He's kind of curled his tail in where there's a little branch that joins, and he's got his kind of bum shifted in there so he can just take it nice and easy and doesn't really have to move too much or worry about anything kind of slipping or falling. The only problem is that front section doesn't look like it can stretch out enough for him to get really comfortable. It's cute though. You can see that brain is working absolutely overtime at the moment. Sharon, you say he reminds you of Hosana in some ways. I think it's just because like yesterday he was being a bit of a clown and he's a bit twitchy and kind of looks at things and with these big wide eyes. It's very much a young male leopard trait. Hosana took it to a whole nother level, but he does it as well. I mean, his little personality is becoming more and more evident as he's getting bigger. But those eyes, just in this darkness and the kind of darkness of his coat, his light-coloured eyes are really kind of shining through. It's very, very pretty. Look at the size of his paws as well, in relation to the size of his head. Massive, massive, massive feet. It's always something you notice with young male leopards is that their feet always look way too big for them. Until they reach about 1.5 years, 2 years, those feet always look awkward. So they kind of look like they're out of proportion. But his lineage, so his mom's kind of male cubs, they've always had big feet and big ears. It was a trait that Swabiyiza, Bahuti, and Tamba all had. They kind of have these funny looks about them because of those ears, but they eventually grow into them. I mean, we know Tamba now is a beautiful, beautiful leopard who grew into ears and feet, and I'm sure he will grow into his feet as well. He's got a very different kind of face to the others. He doesn't quite match the looks that they had. I'm sure he's part of the Muluwati genetic. It's a shame that we can't confirm, but I'm pretty sure he is. I wonder if he's going to move a few little yawns. Sometimes yawning can be a sign that they're wanting to move a little bit, or it can just be a sign of absolute boredom within a cub. So we'll just have to see what happens and whether or not he comes down. I hope he doesn't come down. Hopefully he stays up there most of the day. The only problem is this road is quite busy, so there's going to be a few cars that are going to hurtle along here that are not necessarily on a game drive. There's a lot of delivery trucks and things that come through here, which might mean that he comes down, but we'll see. Seems fairly unfazed by the world right now. Doesn't seem to be too stressed about being up in Jackalberry.
Grand Slam, I feel like we've answered this question a lot lately, but the whiskers of a leopard, yes, they serve a function. They are sensory in the way that they work. So much like you have eyes and ears and nose, it's the same thing. A whisker is very, very sensitive. It helps the cat figuring out space. So those whiskers, if they bump into things, the cat knows it can draw its head back before it gets stuck or hurt. It helps with picking up vibration. It's got a huge amount to do with nighttime things. They are able to detect their environment pretty well when they're focused on a prey animal, and those whiskers touch something, they know that they might cause a disturbance, and so they then reposition. So it's much like what we have in terms of senses, just an extra sense that they've got. So it's more like a touch sense than anything else. Makes them look funny when they don't have them, though, I'll tell you that much. You don't realize how weird they look without them until they don't have them. I've told this story many times before, but we had a little leopardess down in the south who was also curious, and she was curious of a fire one day and got her face too close to a fire and burnt all her whiskers off. She looked ridiculous for a long time, and hence why she was then named Fire, which is in Zulu. She, for some reason, decided it would be a good idea to investigate, but it was very, very, very funny because, I mean, obviously she was fine and nothing happened to her. She didn't burn her paws or her nose or anything like that. It's just her whiskers kind of went all stubby, and she looked strange. And like I say, you don't realize it until you actually see it. I'm sure there's some photos out there of her when she was whiskerless. For those of you that want to see a whiskerless cat, hopefully somebody will have a picture of it at some point. It was in 2013, I think, 2014, beginning of 2014, somewhere there. For those that want to go back and try and have a look. But look at that face. I think he wants to lie facing us because he wants to see what we get up to, but it's not as comfortable as facing the opposite way because he can't rest it on his paw. Tyler, I don't know. I suppose early years coming into the Kruger a lot, leopard was a mysterious animal. It was not one that you saw. It's not like nowadays, in the Kruger these days, leopards are seen all over the place. Back then, a leopard was quite a special sighting. You really struggled to get really decent views of them. So I think as a kid, it was always that one animal that you wanted to see that you very seldom did. My grandparents had a book that was done by a guy called Lex Hess. He used to be a guide at Londolozi for a long time, and he did a Leopards of Londolozi book. And I remember as a child sitting and paging through that book countless times. In fact, I actually have that book at home now. And it always just kind of awoken the sense of I would really love to spend time with these cats. And you just saw the pictures, read everything in there. And it was basically the stories of the leopards that were around on Londolozi and how they Lex's experience with them. And that got me really fascinated. And then, you become a teenager and sometimes you start to do other things, and sport became a much bigger priority for a long time. And then kind of coming into the Sabi Sands and starting my guiding was, the first animal I saw, or the first on foot in the Sabi Sands was Ravenscourt female with her 2 young cubs and 1 older cub, which is a whole nother story altogether. So there was 4 leopards together on foot. And that kind of then sparked a whole nother interest in them altogether. And then the more I was in the sands, the more time I got to spend with them, the more they kind of imprinted on me, and that's kind of how it started. But I suppose it's the elusiveness of it all, and the fact that they have a coat that we as people have in many ways tried to emulate. And you think of leopard print, it's on everything. So there's this beauty about them, the shy, reclusive nature, the challenge in finding them. Those all serve to just kind of grow this passion to spend as much time with them as possible. And I find them fascinating. I find that they're adaptable. They typically
are fairly active cats. I mean, you look yesterday afternoon, he was busy the whole afternoon. It's, he sat for a little bit, but there's always something happening. And so that kind of just has only stimulated it more. And then as my guiding career went, when you're with guests, it's a very different thing. You can't do things for yourself. You're doing things for what the guests want and what they want to see, which is perfect. But coming to Wild Earth, it allowed a time and an opportunity to spend with more and more of my time with them. And I'll always be grateful for the last 4 years. I mean, I've spent more hours with leopard than I think most people or most guides will ever spend. And I've learnt a lot from them because of it. And so the more I spend with them, the more I want to spend with them. And it's starting to kind of push me into a place where I've been thinking about possibilities in the future and where I'm going to go and, what the path ahead will be. And while I love guiding and doing all of those kinds of things, somehow starting to do more in the world of leopards would probably be a course that I would start to think about at some point. I mean, not right now, but eventually figure out maybe something that I can do that it'll involve some sort of protection or help for leopards, as well as just, spending a lot of time out in the field with them, which is a dream that everybody has, but, maybe we can make it happen at some point. Who knows? It's one of those things that you never really kind of sure of. He's yawning a lot and has stood up, so let's see if he decides to move. I wonder if he's going to come down. Just watching the flow of water. So yeah, I mean, that's a long-winded answer to a simple question. But I think that book and my grandparents giving me time out in the wild with those two, that sort of sparked this fascination with these guys to the point where I was able to, make a career of actually seeing them more often and spending a lot more time with them. I am enamored with them is probably a good word. So I enjoy the whole process of looking for them, trying to find them, spending time with them. I think that's it, really. And now I'm going to have to try and see if I can start seeing all of them. It's going to take a long time, but to try and figure out a way to go and spend time with snow leopards and with Amur leopards. There's a few that will be near impossible to find other than with camera traps, but at the end of the day, you can give it a bash and see how it goes. Anyway, enough of me rambling on about why I like leopards. Let's send you across to Steve, who sounds like he's on a mission.
Welcome back to Buffelshoek, everybody, where we didn't get another view of our hippopotamus. He moved off back down probably to Sydney's. He wasn't there earlier when we went past. We've done a big loop around. No sign of any lions coming in from the north or the west. We should be connecting with that buffalo herd at some point on our way down from here. Not sure exactly where they're headed to, but it's general direction. We're going to arrive at the Tambuti Dam area from the north. We'll probably pick up some signs of them soon. So Davy and Lauren are back today to start tomorrow morning. And Sebastian, who's been at Ngala, will also be back this side, back on the vehicle from tomorrow morning, and I'll still be here for the next 2 weeks. Tristan and Paul and Theo will be leaving in the morning, so their last drive this afternoon. Been wonderful having the gentleman around. Wonderful working with Tristan, of course, as always. Too short and too sweet it has been. But I think we will be working again together in March, the two of us, the last 2 weeks of March. Okay, well, we're going to catch up with our buffaloes shortly, I believe, but in the meantime, Tswalu has stopped to smell the roses.
All right, some pretty things. We just got the light at a great angle that makes these flowers just illuminate right now. And they do look so great from this position. This is wild sesame or thunderbolt flower. A very prominent flower around at the moment. And just to correct what we were talking about with the giraffe getting dizzy, it's not the increase of blood pressure that has to deal with when it lifts its head. Sorry, I made a slight error there. It's the reduction in blood pressure. So when the blood vessels contract, when the giraffe lifts its head, it is keeping enough blood in the head so that the giraffe can still function. Because when you stand up, it's a reduction of blood in your brain that makes you dizzy. Sorry, I got that muddled up there. So my apologies. So just looking very, very nice from this position now. And we find areas where we can have almost an entire field covered in these beautiful flowers. And very easy to recognize them from their trumpet-like shaped flower. And you can see there's multiple flowers on one plant. And then as well as its linear or elongated strap-like leaves. Is used as an aphrodisiac. I would not give it a bash, but very distinctive. If you look in that central part, look how prominently displayed that central part is of that flower. That flower is directing insects to exactly where they need to go. There's no mistake on where you need to go to get a little source of food. Nectar and pollen, obviously, very, very important. Pollen, for the transfer of pollen, is what the plant wants. But nectar is the attractive property that flowers produce. And obviously it's very, very cost effective at that as well. But nectar is the luring substance that you want to draw in creatures to come and collect your pollen to take it to another flower. A very, very nice scene right now. So bees of various kinds would pollinate this flower. You would find certain beetles even. Moths and butterflies, maybe moths, but butterflies, that's very, very long. Sorry, FC, can you go with the viewer's name again, please? So I heard the question about how many plants we have on Tswalu. Tswalu does exhibit quite a large range of... JD, there we go. Great comment there, JD. So if you look at Tswalu, we do exhibit quite a lot of flowering plants, especially through this favorable period. But if you look at the Northern Cape itself, the region that we are in, the region actually shows quite a low diversity in comparison to the rest of the country. With very low endemic rate at that as well. But nevertheless, it is still very, very beautiful to see these flowering plants through this rainy period. And this is the perfect time to view these beautiful flowering objects. Flowers are incredible. It's something that I'm really getting stuck into every day. And it's something that you need to be in and around. And learning from people that have the knowledge is the best way one would learn, especially when it comes to categorizing them into family groups, because some family plants or flowering plants can be very, very tricky. You get people specializing their entire lives in a certain field or a certain group of a flowering group itself, and that's all that they handle. It's because they're so complex and so, how can I say it? So complex, yeah. Tiny, tiny little variances between species themselves that it becomes, a head-scratching activity more than anything else. But a lovely plant, wild sesame. But let's continue. Let's leave this little patch over here. And if Craig gives us a view over here on our left-hand side, you can see Whoa, Lisa, I'm really not sure. Didn't get the full I didn't get the full name there, but I'm really not sure. I have to look that up with the Mr. Dylan Smith. But I'm just pointing out over here, Craig, is that you can see more of this wild sesame here on our left-hand side. And if you just go a little bit further, let me pull the vehicle further forward, you can see the structure of this plant. And if you look on our left-hand side here, look how many there are at just this one patch that we are sitting at. There is lots of them. You can see very distinctive structural body. It's like an upright column or upright stem, and then the leaves coming off on either end of it. Very, very dominant in this period. Lovely stuff. But yeah, getting into all the little pretty things is lovely. And it's also where guides and trackers can actually specialize themselves into as well, a certain field. They can... It is a very beautiful flower, DJ. So guides and trackers are very lucky that we can actually specialize ourselves into specifically flowers. You can do qualifications that allow you to give yourself a very broad understanding of flowers in South Africa, their ecology, their biology, you name it, and then specifically the family groups, because South Africa exhibits a very, very healthy diversity, especially if you go down to the Western Cape, the Fynbos biome. Within that region, you have an estimated of 8,700 different flowering plants, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And that's where the nitty-gritty work really comes in. Blood, sweat and tears comes into that area to ID them and understand their relation to each other.
Welcome back, everyone. I can hear a cuckoo shrike. Wonder if we'll find him. There's a fork-tailed drongo up there. Wonder if we'll get the cuckoo shrike. It sounds like. Can you see the forkies up there? Black cuckoo shrike male looks very much like a fork-tailed drongo. Oh, he's gone. Little bird parties. And onward they fly. Talk about flies. We found the buffalo dung all over. They came across and through. And there are flies galore swirling in the vehicle. We're doing a little fly dance.
Well, this leopard is being a ridiculous sausage right now, because you see the height that he is now climbed. So that's the tree. Now, you might just be able to see his paws. The camera really can't go much more than where he is at the moment. That's how high above us he is. And right up at the top is where he has now decided this is going to be more comfortable. I mean, you really wouldn't know if you drove here and you weren't paying attention. You wouldn't be able to pick this guy up at all. He's so high up there. But he seems happy now. He's gotten himself into a much more comfortable spot than I think he had a little bit earlier on. So we'll see. Maybe he'll stay up here this afternoon. By this afternoon, he'll still be there. We'll just have to wait and see. It's quite funny just seeing these two little paws dangling and a tail with this cat sitting high up in the branches. Ridiculous. He's been all over. He's been touring the canopy of this jackalberry. He went up on the right side, then he was down back to his spot, then he went come up towards us, and then he was watching us for a long time, kind of thinking about it. And I was like, if he jumps from there, he's not only going to hurt himself, but it would be a big problem for us. So luckily he decided rather to turn around and sit. But he keeps watching us from around the corner. You can just make out his face every now and then through all of the leaves as he kind of checks us out. But he'll have a serious view from up there. You'll be able to see well over the drainage line and spot if Mom starts to come our way. He definitely will be taking it easy, that's for sure, and see a lot from up there. What a treat it is to be spending so much time with him. We'll try and come this afternoon because of my last drive this afternoon before I head off again. We'll see if we can come and spend some time with him before I head off. I'll be back fairly shortly, so it won't be too long. It's only 2 weeks that I'm away for, but still, it'll be nice just to spend time with him. But it is that time of day, talking about time spent, where our morning drive has come to an end. It's been an interesting drive. It's nice to have some buffalo around. Obviously, always nice to see this little fella and his cute little face, as well as all the other happenings that have been going on. So we hope that you enjoyed this morning. We hope that there was something for all of you. So from myself, Steve, and Kyle, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll see you this afternoon on our Sunset Safari.